qualifies and who can apply for the 370 rand per month social relief of distress grant. Those regulations were deemed to be unconstitutional and invalid. Basically, the long and short of it is that the judge in that matter felt that government put up barriers to people who would otherwise qualify for the 370 rand per month social relief of distress grant, basically on the basis that government's calculation was that it will become too unaffordable. So therefore, according to this judgment, having assessed everything presented, basically there was a scathing assessment that the judge made of some of the practices, saying that, for instance, the use of bank verification method, the method of verifying when a person is applying for the SRD grant, checking what flows through their bank accounts and the likes. Basically, the result of that is that any money passing through an applicant's bank account within the month in which they apply for the grant would then disqualify them. So, give you an example. A person who otherwise meets the threshold for applying for the SRD in that they are unemployed, have no other means of income or financial support, and earn less than 624 rand per month, but then it just so happens that you decide this month you are able to send your cousin 1,000 rand to their bank account, and you send the 1,000 rand, and then they go and apply for the SRD grant. Guess what? They would be utterly disqualified because that would be deemed either financial support or income. So that was found to be, basically violating the rights of people who would otherwise qualify for the SRD grant. Basically, the judge came down to, even saying that it's unacceptable that in a situation where, by the criteria of insufficient means, more than 18 million people, 18 million people could potentially qualify for the SRD grant. Less than 10 million people are, receiving it. And government's argument is that it would become unsustainable. The costs of providing it would rise by a good 60 billion rand. Well, the judge has not accepted any of that, and in fact has gone on to say that it may have started as a temporary grant, but it has become permanent. That is what the judge has found there. So it's quite interesting. I mean, among the other observations that are made is the unreliability of government databases that inform decisions on whether or not a person qualifies for the SRD grant. So the databases held by Home Affairs, the National Student Financial Aid Scheme, SARS, the UIF, all of those are said to be unreliable and in a way have helped to preclude some who qualify from actually being granted access to the SRD grant. So I said it's forcing a reckoning with the social relief, social grants system, which we know from work done, for instance, by the World Bank a few years ago, that when done right, I think it's about 2-3 years ago that the study came out, when done right, our social relief package as a whole, not just grants, but everything that we put together, the social system in South Africa, can have a deep impact in terms of pushing back against poverty. So I would like to know from you, is this judgment and what has been said about the exclusion and how undesirable they are, forcing us to finally reckon with the issue of the idea of a basic income grant that has been, floated for quite some time, a basic income grant in a country where the unemployment levels are what they are. And many people have no means really to sustain themselves. And also some of the work that was done, you may scoff at 370 rand per month, but I remember reading studies that talk about how families use the grants creatively. So the pooling of grants. So if one person is receiving a child support grant, the other receives a care dependency grant, the other receives a social relief of distress grant. There's that pooling of grants and in many families that helps them to get by, and other people are able to even use some of those grants to start small businesses and do something for themselves to be sustainable. So I'm wondering, are we at a point where we need to accept that we don't have the employment creation that government is hoping will be the remedy for the levels of unemployment and poverty that we face. And in the absence of that, what do we do with our social grants system to make it sustainable and make sure that it supports as many people as possible, given the constraints that government constantly tells us we face on our pockets, the fiscus, the national fiscus. Give me a call, weigh in on that. The number to dial 086 000 2032. I'll take your WhatsApp voice notes to the number 061 410 4107. So we'll have a conversation about that in the second hour of the show, just before 8 a.m. But the other conversation we'll talk about, that we will have actually, is a few days ago, I spoke about the global impacts of the choice that Americans made for themselves to re-elect Donald Trump. Well, we'll tell you about another one of those impacts. It's basically the reinstatement of what is known as the global gag rule. It's a federal rule, also known as the Mexico City policy. Basically, what it does is it halts U.S. funding to overseas groups that provide abortion services. And Donald Trump has now signed an executive order reinstating the federal rule that is known as the Mexico City policy. Basically, it's a bit of a ping pong. When a Democrat is in office, he or she rescinds the Mexico City policy, the global gag rule. As soon as a Republican comes in, they reinstate it. And now it has been reinstated with concern that its implications are far-reaching and could even impact, abortion rights and the choices that women are able to make in countries, including our own, through the cutting of funding to some groups that provide assistance to women in this country, among others. So you can weigh in on that. The number to dial 086 000 2032. Your WhatsApp voice notes on 061 410 4107. Of course, we have all of your regulars locked and loaded as usual. And Musa with your news updates every half hour. Rob Byrne with your traffic updates every 15 minutes or so. Zaikan is watching your sport throughout the morning. And Otwa Magwenchu standing in for Ndauleng Lechela with your economics, business and market news throughout the morning. Sipho Mantula with your Africa update just before 8 a.m. This is SAFM. We are leading the conversations that move us. The first hour of the Tuesday edition of the Morning Brief starts now.
I feel great, I feel nice.
Kosha, what's the goal with coiling on the highest, the summer level? What are we? Generations the legacy. Kabisi's call for Kumo's side eye. That Kwasha of the drama context. It's churchy Christmas vibes. It's the core on SABC Plus. Don't miss Generations the Legacy at 8 weekdays on SABC 1. Mzansi for sure.
Fly Sapphire is proud to share that we've been named the most on-time airline in Africa and the Middle East for a second year in a row. This award by Cirium, the world's leader in aviation analytics, is proof of how important your time is to us and how we genuinely care about getting you to your destinations and loved ones on time, every time. Because each second saved is a moment gained, and we strive to keep making every moment count. Fly Sapphire, for the love of flying.
The Daily News Diary on SAFM.
All right, let's say good morning to Anne. Good morning to you, Anne. So on the diary this morning, I believe you are still focusing on the situation in the DRC.
Good morning, Thulas.
Yeah.
Indeed, we still are. And the current situation in the DRC, President Cyril Ramaphosa has held a telephonic conversation with Rwanda's President Paul Kagame to discuss developments there, and the two heads of state agreeing on the urgent need for a ceasefire as well as the resumption of peace talks by all parties to the conflict. And today, the UN Security Council will also be holding an urgent meeting on the situation. However, still a lot of questions being asked on the purpose of South Africa's operation in the eastern DRC. That's given challenges faced by the Defence and Military Veterans Department.
Yeah. What else is on the diary this morning?
A number of Patco bus passengers in Mpumalanga could be affected this morning. Several Patco buses were burnt at depots in what's believed to be a suspected arson attack. despite the damage, Butco buses are continuing to operate in affected areas but under heightened supervision. The fraud case against former Johannesburg Mayor Kabelo Gwamanda and a co-accused resumes in the Protea Magistrates Court in Soweto today. Gwamanda faces charges that's linked to an alleged funeral policy scam that reportedly took place in Soweto back in 2011. And judgment in the bail application of a man accused of financing terrorism will be handed down in the Lichtenburg Magistrates Court today. Zihad, this 35-year-old, is alleged to have financed a terrorist organization in 2017 using Bitcoin. And in Cape Town, the trial of alleged underworld boss Nafiz Modak and former rugby player Zayn Keelan will continue in the High Court. This morning, their bid to have charges against them were withdrawn, failed yesterday. And also looking at cleanup operations continuing at the Boyson's informal settlement in Johannesburg after a fire destroyed dozens of shacks yesterday. Some of the stories that I will be focusing on.
All right, thank you for that, Anne. That's Anne Musa. She'll keep you updated on the news every half hour here on The Morning Brief.
Thulasizwe Simelane on The Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
So you may have heard in Anne's bulletin there that the South African Weather Service has said that it suffered what it suspects was a cyber attack on its ICT system. So that's partly why the last few days I've been in a bit of a panic and a bit of a scramble to find the weather for you, because the website just kept not functioning as it should. But of course, the Weather Service providing alternative ways for us to be able to bring you your weather. So in terms of warnings, there are no impact-based warnings. So let me tell you the rest of your weather then. Pretoria, fine with a minimum of 17 and a maximum of 33. Johannesburg will be fine, becoming partly cloudy in the afternoon with a minimum of 15 and a maximum of 30. Mbombela, partly cloudy, becoming cloudy in the evening with drizzle, 18 to 29. Polokwane, fine, becoming partly cloudy, 18 to 29. Mahikeng will be partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers, 19 to 32. Bloemfontein will be partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers, 19 to 33. Kimberley, partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers, 23 to 36. Cape Town will be partly cloudy at first, otherwise fine with a minimum of 19 and a maximum of 31. George will be cloudy with isolated showers and rain in the morning, 18 to 23. Gqeberha will be cloudy with scattered showers and rain, 19 to 23. East London will be cloudy with scattered showers and thunder showers, 20 to 24. Durban will be partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers from the afternoon, 22 to 29. Richards Bay, partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers, 22 to 30. And finally, Pietermaritzburg, morning fog patches, otherwise partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers, 16 to 29.
Owning a small or medium-sized business takes courage, skill, and determination. The Clientele Legal Business Plan is there to protect, guide, and assist your business in managing the legal risks. Let us handle your labor matters, employment contracts, CCMA referrals, and so much more. Our team of professional lawyers are standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 42770. That's SAFM to 42770. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
It's time to shine for young athletes across South Africa. From thrilling football and rugby matches to intense netball games. Experience the passion and prowess of Mzansi's finest young sports stars. Super Sports Schools and SABC Plus bring you the specially curated channel dedicated entirely to school and youth sports. Join us as we celebrate their achievements and bring the excitement right to your screens. This is your chance to support the future of South African sports. The Super Sports Schools channel on SABC Plus, where every game is a home game. Don't miss a moment. Download the SABC Plus app today. Available on iOS, Google, and Smart TV. Or visit sabc-plus.com to start streaming. Super Sports Schools on SABC Plus. All the sport you care about most. Now streaming wherever you are.
Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international or global news.
22 minutes after 6 on this Tuesday. Well, on Monday, tens of thousands of Palestinians started returning to northern Gaza after Israel reopened military checkpoints, ending a year-long displacement that many feared could become permanent. Meanwhile, the release of Israeli hostages by Hamas is also continuing. These events are because of the ceasefire that has been reached between Hamas and Israel. And for more on that story and those developments, I'm joined by Willem Els, who is a senior training coordinator on terrorism and explosives at the Institute for Security Studies. Good morning to you, Willem, and thank you for your time. So the columns of people that were being shown walking along a pathway and a stretch in Gaza that is parallel to the Mediterranean Sea, some 200,000 or more people, we're told, are making their way towards northern Gaza. What does that reveal about the extent of the displacement and the humanitarian impact that the war has had over the past 15 months?
Good morning to you. Yeah, unfortunately so. What we've seen in the past few days is just the aftermath of what happened some almost 2 years ago. And it just gives us an indication of the mass displacement that actually took place there and how many people have been disrupted in their lives. And so at the moment, yeah, unfortunately, there's still a tug of war between the two parties, maneuvering throughout the process, negotiation. And at the end of the day, it seems that the people on the ground are those who suffer most.
Yeah, and you talk about the tug of war between the two sides. And part of the context, Willem, is that this had been delayed a little bit, the opening of the checkpoints to allow for the return of the displaced to northern Gaza. And this had to do with Israel accusing Hamas of violating some terms of the agreement?
Yeah, unfortunately, it seems that Hamas did not keep strictly to the agreement, and that was then used by the Israelis in order to push them into a corner in order to release the names, especially of those who are still alive. And also, there was some challenges with one of the hostages that was not released when it was promised. So that's what we mean with the tug of war. It's a chess of game, a game of chess that is being played there by these powers that be, and unfortunately, as I mentioned, the people are suffering.
And what do these people who are returning to northern Gaza return to, Willem? From what we can piece together, what conditions are they returning to?
Yeah, what we saw is the aftermath of the war that started there is that mass destruction on the ground took place with the tunneling system that was a labyrinth of tunnels that were under the ground there and linked over miles and miles and miles. And so in order to destroy those tunnels, one of the ways was to destroy virtually everything on the surface. And they also, it seems that the Israelis went out and every building and every safe house and a safe place for Hamas has been destroyed. And that led to a mass destruction on the ground of virtually all the infrastructure that is in Gaza. That will lead now to a virtual rebuilding of the whole area.
So it's a delicate situation, and the ceasefire itself was negotiated delicately by various players. What then becomes the impact of comments such as the ones, I'm not sure if you've heard of them, the comments of Donald Trump, the U.S. president, talking about, quote unquote, clearing out Gaza by moving, Palestinians to neighboring Arab countries?
Yeah, the dynamics over the last year or so, we saw the two different administrations, the two different approaches by the two different American administrations, some pressure on Israel, some pressure on Hamas by them, and a whole different approach by the Trump administration. And so what we also saw is since Trump made the first comments on how he's going to deal with them, there seemed to have been some movement on the ground. And at the end of the day, both administrations claimed that what happened actually occurred because of their initiatives and so on. So everyone is claiming. But we see a different approach from the Trump administration that's a bit more hard-handed, a bit more direct. And it should be read between the lines what's happening, because it's a lot of threat, a lot of talk. But at the end of the day, what it seems to have done is it started to mobilize more of the countries in the region that were quite not as vocal and as active prior to his engagement. So we saw the response from especially Jordan when he mentioned that. They said they will not adhere to that or not give in to that, but also they came to the table now and they're looking for solutions together with the other powers.
And how do comments like those play within the Israeli political system where, the ceasefire was not universally supported, particularly by far-right politicians who were not really in support of it? Do they feel emboldened and basically perhaps even put pressure on the government of Benjamin Netanyahu to say, you see, this is not the direction you should have gone, the direction of a ceasefire?
Yeah, it's a difficult situation and very volatile in Israel on the ground, especially in the political spectrum. We see that Israel as a country is extremely divided between the left and the right wing and the ultra right wing, and Netanyahu is trying to keep the cabinet together and trying to actually make it work. So it's a lot of pressure on him from the left, but also the right was not, and the far right was not very happy with all the concessions made by him. So it is a tiptoeing and a game of chess that is being played. It emboldened, of course, the more right-wing inclined parties, and it pushed back on the left side. So it is really tiptoeing for Netanyahu in order to make this happen, because there's a lot of pressure also from the general public in order to get the hostages home.
All right, let me thank you for that. That is Willem Els there, who is a senior training coordinator on terrorism and explosives at the Institute for Security Studies, talking about the return that we are seeing of tens of thousands of Palestinians to northern Gaza. You should see the pictures. Actually, I was looking at some of them on the Guardian newspaper. They're just really dramatic. Columns of people, masses and waves of people just walking and marching towards northern Gaza, of course, returning to a situation of utter devastation following 15 months of war in that region. At 6:30, let's check in with Ann Musa now with the latest news headlines.
Good morning. Thanks to us. In the headlines, Patco Bus Company says it will continue to operate in Mpumalanga under heightened supervision. This after it confirmed earlier that 2 of its workers had been wounded in an incident in which 47 of its buses were torched in the province. The case of former Johannesburg Mayor Kabelo Gwamanda and a co-accused will resume in the Protea Magistrates Court in Soweto today. Gwamanda is facing charges of fraud after allegedly defrauding Soweto residents in a funeral policy scheme. And SEDEC chairperson, Zimbabwe's President Emmerson Mnangagwa, has expressed concern on the security situation in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. I'll have details on these and other stories at 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
South through Midrand, already busy. Brackfontein all the way down to New Road is the sort of degree of slowness that we've got there this Tuesday morning. Crossing to Durban, just keep your eyes open for a breakdown. It's on the N2 going north in the roadworks before you get to Gateway. The Kwamashu Highway nearby from Mallandela Road heading down towards the N2. That's reasonably busy for this time of morning. Cape Town, a crash on Robert Sobukwe involving a truck at the N2 bridge. If you're coming from that Valhalla side down towards the N2 highway, that's quite busy. Mitchell's Plain is very slow, even slower this morning. I think what you've got is a lot of traffic arriving up off Baden-Powell, perhaps, finding its way through Mitchell's Plain and just sort of extending the delays that normal Mitchell's Plain residents experience there. So Baden-Powell is closed at Monwabisi, and then it's closed at Coastal Park, effectively shutting the road from Strandfontein through to Muizenberg both ways. In both cases, that's due to heavy sand, but it's that sort of Strandfontein Pavilion area that's badly backed up on Baden-Powell, on Spine Road, and on Strandfontein heading north on the divert. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
So, you know, Zai, what the listeners may not know is that you give me what you'll be talking about in advance and I look into it. But I must tell you, I haven't had a chance because off air you were telling me about your tennis sessions.
Yes, you know they say love means nothing in tennis. Man, I'm not loving playing tennis yesterday because
What's happening?
My back is out of whack.
Yeah.
I woke up stiff.
It's because you run after everything and you're very competitive, Zai.
Yeah, I'll save myself for reading the sport, not doing actual sport. Yo, it's bad. No backhands for me, I promise.
Yeah. Tell me about Sekhukhune brushing aside Cape Town City.
I mean, look at this team. Wow. Sekhukhune managing all these goals, 2-0. And Thulas, you've got four Limpopo teams in the last 16.
Yeah.
This province is owning the Nedbank Cup. We'll have to dig deep into that one. We'll find out more, but let's give you the score. 2-0 was Sekhukhune United's victory over Cape Town City. Nedbank last 32 match played at the old Peter Mokaba Stadium in Polokwane last night. This is a well-deserved win, which saw Babina Noko advancing to the round of 16 and their coach Leshlonolo Siema eager to mastermind the team's second successive victory when they'll take on Stellenbosch FC in a Betway Premiership clash on Saturday. The Citizens, on the other hand, bowed out of South Africa's FA Cup. Coach Mohsin Etugral will be determined to ensure his side returns to winning ways. They will lock horns with TS Galaxy and the Betway Premiership. That's on Sunday. In the meantime, Kaizer Chiefs, they've signed 27-year-old right-winger Maccabi Lilepo from the French side Valenciennes, former SA Youth International Thabo Tsele, and striker Tashreeq Morris. Lilepo will join the squad after securing his work permit, which may prevent him from playing in the Soweto derby against Orlando Pirates at FNB Stadium come this Saturday. Elsewhere, match officials in German's football's top tiers will announce decisions made by the video assistant referee to the crowd as part of a trial to take place this weekend. Stadium announcements are commonplace in other sports such as rugby union and American football, and the system is also trialled during the 2023 Women's World Cup in Australia and New Zealand. 9 clubs, including Bayern Munich, Borussia Dortmund and Bayer Leverkusen, will have volunteered now to be part of the trials across the Bundesliga and the Bundesliga 2. In the meantime, Spain's Euro 2024 coach Luis de la Fuente extended his contract until 2028. The 63-year-old has been in the post since 2022, guiding Spain to the Nations League title in 2023 and then to victory against England in last year's Euro final. Cricket news, Jason Rowles and Mohamed Bulbulia both came close to hitting centuries as South Africa's under-19 men responded well on the second day of the first youth test against England taking place in Stellenbosch. After dismissing England for 299 early in the morning session, the host then replied with 269 for 8, a deficit of just 30 runs. In the meantime, one of South Africa's all-time greats, AB de Villiers, is set for a cricket comeback after nearly 4 years on the sidelines. De Villiers has announced his comeback to the game and will lead the Game Changers South Africa champions in the second edition of the World Championship of Legends. Mr. 360 degrees, as de Villiers is affectionately known, retired from international cricket in 2018. And tennis action, Britain's Emma Raducanu suffered a disappointing defeat against the world number 121, Cristina Busca of Spain, in the opening round of the Singapore Open, 5-7, 7-5, 7-5. And finally, the double Australian Open champion Yannick Sinner has set his sights on mastering clay and grass courts to make himself a complete player after the Italian claimed his third hard-court Grand Slam. The world number 1 retained his Melbourne Park crown with a 6-3, 7-6, 6-3 victory over Alexander Zverev at the Rod Laver Arena. Yes, Sinner?
The second one, this one, maybe you enjoy it a bit more because it's different. And but every Grand Slam or every tournament you win or you go far, it has its own story. You have to pass difficulties like I did also this year here, and and this makes it very, very special.
And that's all the sports from the court here on the Morning Brief. Keep your eye on the ball. We'll rally back with more at the top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
The Business Update on SAFM.
For that, we turn to Odwa Makwenju, who is portfolio manager at Momentum Securities, standing in for Ndauleng Lechela this week. So, good morning to you, Odwa. I saw commentary that says this situation with DeepSeek is the tech industry's Sputnik moment. Tell me what's that all about? Who is DeepSeek and why have they shaken things so much?
Okay, thank you for having me today. So DeepSeek is an open source AI module. So if you recall, there has been a lot of chat around AI. There's OpenAI, which does a lot of things and provides generative AI. Now, the difference with DeepSeek and with what's happening right now is DeepSeek, number one, is open source, meaning that anyone can go and change it to whatever your likings are. So it's very easy for even businesses to just take it and put whatever parameters they want, and they have a very good AI model. One. Two is that it cost only $6 million to do. Last year alone, more than $250 billion has been invested in AI capabilities by different companies, where this AI generative model or AI operator did it with $6 million. So then a lot of companies are asking themselves, did they waste money? Will they get the right amount of returns for their investments? So that's the big shakeup in the market. And we saw yesterday NVIDIA down more than 16%, losing close to $600 billion in value.
So basically, DeepSeek can do what ChatGPT can do for much less.
For free, yes.
For free, wow. And of course, for those who are of a younger generation, the allusion to Sputnik moment refers to when the Soviet Union beat the United States to, putting a person in space ahead of the US. So just to put everyone in picture, we have my 2000s listening to us. Tell me about AT&T's results. This is one of those that you were watching closely, is it?
That is correct. So AT&T is a telecoms giant in the United States. Their results beat all expectations, revenue beating expectation, and also, the business is just making a lot of money. Now, the key indicators for me is that they saw a big growth when it comes to fiber and also to 5G networks, and that just shows to the demand that is for those two subcategories of the business. And so they beat on that front, and they managed to reduce their debt on their balance sheet by $9 billion. So what this just says is that the business is now trying to be more concise in terms of reducing debt, and then they are looking to invest much more in terms of fiber and 5G going forward. So if you also recall, we had Verizon release their results as well recently, and so it's just showing that the telecom space in the United States is doing well, mainly because of fiber and 5G.
Yeah. All right, please give us our first roundup of the markets here at home and elsewhere in the world.
Okay, starting at home, the top 40 was up by 0.18%, mainly thanks to the industrial sector up by 1.08%. However, on the opposite end, resources and financials dropping, resources down by 1.68%. You saw a lot of platinum miners in the negative, and that's the main reason there. We go across the board to the United States, Dow Jones up by 0.16%, S&P and NASDAQ down by 1.9 and 3.4 respectively. NASDAQ thanks to what happened with DeepSeek. And then as we go across the ponds even more, Nikkei is currently down by 0.9%, Hang Seng up by 0.56%, and the Australian Aussie up by 0.36%.
All right, thank you for that. That's Odwa Makwenju, portfolio manager at Momentum Securities, standing in for Ndauleng Lechela for the first few days of this week. Look out for his second report of the morning just after 7:30 here on the Morning Brief.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
Let me take a quick call from Hassan in Johannesburg. Good morning to you, Hassan. You want to respond to my conversation with Willem Els earlier on?
Yeah, I mean, Thulas, it sounded a bit like an offset. Like this guy just talks about terror. He failed to even mention that close to 50,000 people have been killed, and mostly women and children. That's where you start with your compassion. Then you talk about how Israel is a habitual offender. After a ceasefire, and I'm looking through a book between Chomsky, a conversation with Ilan Pape and Chomsky, talking about 2014. Israel makes a deal and breaks these things. I mean, the other day they were in Jenin, attacking the city there. So the impunity that they enjoy is what he should talk about. And I really don't think we must get his master's voice to tell us. Of course, it's one view, and I'm challenging it. Just so part of my issue is that I think that he didn't help us, and people are advised to keep reading. And I just wanted to go back to this issue of DeepSeek. I went in there, and one of my litmus tests for all these AI is to ask them questions about Palestine and Israel. And then you see how they respond. The others have a lot of caveats to say, but it is also said, not with DeepSeek. I checked it out last night, and it gave me a lot of information. So really, I recommend the diversity, multiplicity of voices. That's how we have to go. We need to cut down.
Agree.
This is one man power,
Look, absolutely agree. In his defense, though, Hassan, can I say that perhaps the conversation was driven by what I was asking him, and perhaps he could only respond to what I was asking, to the extent, from his perspective, and obviously affording more voices such as yours to then come on to add to the diversity of voices.
Yeah, Thulas, these guys, did any of the news say that the Gaza Air Force left last night and drove in? No, there's no Air Force. There's no land, air, and seaboard. I mean, this is the context that we want our experts to bring about. The kind of military aid that they get from Germany to Israel, the U.S., billions that have been sent there, 53 billion in 2002. India is also considering to be an ally. So clearly, there is such a disproportionate balance of power. It's imbalance of power. The asymmetries are so great, and I think ultimately what we're asking for, how can such a nation in this strip of land actually still want to go back to the rubble which they call home? And that is a sense of pride for those who talk about resistance.
All right, thank you for that. That's Hassan there in Joburg calling in following the conversation I had earlier on with Willem Els about the beginnings of the return of Palestinians in Gaza, returning to northern Gaza.
Hey, listen up. With our Blue Sky offers, you can get your dream Ford with our optional service plan, and our Ford family guarantee comes standard. Think extensive dealer network, genuine Ford parts, and express service. Visit your trusted Ford dealer for the complete Ford ownership experience. Limited time offer while stocks last. T&Cs apply.
Ever since Uspilion won 5,000 rand, 5 tower on Wheel of Fortune, he only wears white push-in sandals, star white, Baba, and he owns 10 identical pairs. And before he did not even know the Queen's language. Now, Kalabo, wow. Chance, let's watch Wheel of Fortune weekdays, Monday to Friday at 7:30 on S3, and see how one spin changed Billion's life, and how it can change ours as well in just one day.
Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAFM.
14 minutes to 7. Well, let's give credit to the reporting of Business Day and the journalist Sinesipho Schreiber for the initial reporting on this story. Even though it has been 10 years since it last operated, questions linger over whether the owners of the Buffelsfontein gold mine in Stilfontein in the northwest could still be legally responsible for the mine and held liable for the deaths that occurred there. The mine has over the years been owned by a series of companies, with the recent events at the mine where over 90 bodies of illegal miners were removed. Who should be held liable for what has happened? To try and give you some perspective on this, I'm joined now by Benedict Phiri, who is an attorney and the managing director of Jurisprudentia. Good morning to you, Benedict, and thank you for your time. So is it a complete answer to say that liability starts and ends between the actions of the illegal miners and perhaps, if you are the other side, the actions of the state in how they dealt with the crisis? Or is there more to it that surrounds the ownership and responsibilities around mine closure?
Yeah, there's certainly more to it. And good morning to Thulasizwe and good morning to the listeners. There's certainly more to it than simply the actions of the police and the underground miners at that particular point in time. There is a legislative framework that's underpinned by the mining right itself, which sets out the roles and responsibilities and, most importantly, the liability in respect of the mine owner. So if you take the mining right, for instance, it's very clear that the mine owner, for as long as that mining right is in place and prior to any rehabilitation, has obligations to properly seal any shafts sunk or any excavations made, and to make sure that the mine is secured for the safety of anybody that accesses that mine, not just people that work there, and to ensure that there isn't any injuries or death. And the Mine Health and Safety Act, when you overlay that on top of the mining right together with the Mineral Petroleum Resources Development Act, make it clear that in cases where there is death or injury, the mining right holder may be held liable for that particular death or injury in instances where they didn't live up to their obligations to rehabilitate the mine and close any of those shafts the way they should have.
So much hinges, does it not, Benedict, on the mine closure certificate? Tell me why that has implications for who owns the mines, because I see that it's part of the arguments being made by the state that actually these owners, previous owners, should still be held responsible.
Yes. It all actually, the point of legal liability when it shifts from the mine owner to the state or to a new owner of the mine rests on that closure certificate. The Act and the law is very clear that until a closure certificate has been issued by the Minister of Mineral Resources, in this case, Mr. Gwede Mantashe, it is the mine owner that remains responsible for any falling out as a result of not rehabilitating that mine properly. Now, it is a complex process, that rehabilitation process, because Buffelsfontein in this particular instance did say that they did apply for that closure certificate, and it is taking long to receive, which is the case as we expected in South Africa. There's very few closure certificates that have been issued, and there's over 6,000 abandoned mines or derelict mines that have not been rehabilitated properly. And the reason why it's complex is because there's a lot of stakeholders involved. It's not just the Minister of Mineral Resources. There's also water affairs. There's also environmental affairs. There's a whole bunch of people that have to give a report to the minister to say that things have been done satisfactorily. And here it's not just closing up the hole, it's making sure that the land can be used in some kind of an economical sense, even for surrounding communities, etc. So it is a very complex process, the process of mine closure, but until it has been closed off, the liability to ensure that the mine is safe rests with the mine owner.
But surely, Benedict, we're not talking about going all the way, the full extent of liability, up to liability for the deaths that have occurred, are we?
No. And because of exactly the fact that there's so much complexity, because at some level you may think that the police have a degree of complexity by basically, having this operation Valamkot, At another level, there's the miners themselves who put themselves in a dangerous situation. At another level, there's the gang leaders, so there's a bunch of places or nodes in the chain where there is responsibility that can be imputed to a number of partners, but there is a node where there is a sense of responsibility or a degree of a degree of culpability that can sit with the mine owner here.
Fantastic. Thank you for your insights this morning. That's Benedict Phiri, who is an attorney and the managing director of Use Prudentia.
SAFM. guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Very heavy for motorists on the highway that were coming in from Protea Glen or Eldos or Lenasia side this morning. First up the N12, passing Lenasia up towards the Golden Highway exit on your way to Joburg. That Golden Highway exit at Eldos, very heavy backlogs. Then as you get through Deadman's Bend on the N1, moving from Eldos up through Devlin and through Deepcliff towards Uncle Charlie's, some very heavy backlogging going on there as well at this hour. The N1 between John Foster and New Road, jammed across all lanes. Looks like being a very busy one as you come out of Pretoria en route to Joburg this morning. Durban, the Kumashu Highway, heavily backed up from Mallandela Road all the way down towards the M2. That run out of Kumashu is heavier than normal. St John's Avenue, the M13 from St John's Avenue Bridge, moving down towards Paradise Valley through the roadworks. That's slow. And there's a breakdown before Gateway on the M2 North, causing a backlog as well. Cape Town just confirming Baden-Powell Drive closed at Khayelitsha. That's the Monwabisi section. And then Baden-Powell closed between Strandfontein and Strandfontein Road and Capricorn Circle on the Muizenberg side. So there are two closures of Baden-Powell with a gap that is open in the middle. Both cases, the road is closed because of thick sand, and there's a lot of pressure in that Strandfontein area. Baden-Powell heading to Muizenberg into the closures heavy, just north of that Spine Road, heading to Strandfontein Road's really backed up, and Strandfontein up through sort of Lotus River heavy with diverting traffic pressures. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
So why should I use We Buy Cars if I want to sell my vehicle?
Because We Buy Cars buys cars.
But will I get the right price?
Of course. We Buy Cars buys thousands of vehicles and knows exactly what every vehicle is worth. Their buyers deliver exceptional service and pay you immediately.
And how do I know what they'll pay for my vehicle?
It's easy. Visit webuycars.co.za or use the We Buy Cars app. Follow the simple steps and voila, you'll get a fantastic price for your car. We Buy Cars. Quick, easy, the best.
The Toffees are well aware that only maximum points will help them out of the bottom half.
Lewin, great feat, brilliance, absolutely superbly done. Calvert-Lewin for Everton.
Meanwhile, the Foxes believe they are in dire need of victory to run away from trouble.
It's Jordan Ayew, back in goal. Jordan Ayew has scored for Leicester City, and those Leicester fans are celebrating wildly.
This is the Premier League. Experience the superb contest, Everton FC versus Leicester City FC, on Saturday 1 February at 4:30 p.m. live on SABC3. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Compliments for 2025, Mangani. Call me Mabel Goals because I'm coming for it all this year. Body, relationship, and financial goals. With my Just Invest account, financially I'm cruising. 2 more to go. You know any available Prince Charming voice, man?
I've got you, Mabel. Sorry. Mara, you can also be like Mabel and earn up to 8.25% in interest to start the year right. Open yours via the Money app today. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider. Promo rates apply. Go to nedbank.co.za for more information.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
News out of KwaZulu-Natal now, where the National School Nutrition Program Service Providers Association has criticized the province's Department of Education for its failure to make timely payments to service providers. The association says this is jeopardizing the essential meals provided to pupils. Let me speak now to Thabang Mncwabe, who is the spokesperson for the KZN National School Nutrition Program Service Providers Association. Good morning to you, and thank you for your time, Mr. Mncwabe. So, how deep is the problem of non-payment of service providers? There was a circular that was issued by the department explaining when payments would be made. Has that been adhered to?
Good morning, Thulasizwe and your listeners. Thanks for coming me to your platform. Yes, indeed, there was a circular 83 of 2014, 2024. 2024, I mean. That circular has not been adhered to fully, so to say. It has been running smoothly until the end of the term of the 6th administration. When the 7th administration took over, that is where the problem started in. That is where we started having these challenges and demonstration with regards to payments.
So how many months behind is the provincial government? And I know you're saying that there was partial compliance with the undertaking to pay, but are you able to estimate that on average, how many months behind are they with various service providers?
Some service providers have not been paid for October. The majority of them have been paid partial amount for November, which was paid after the specified date as per the circular, and all the service providers have not been paid for December. Mind you, you render the service first and then they pay you later. So it means you are always offering a service before you get paid. So it means the service providers have offered their services with their own money, and then they have not been paid, compensated for that. So that leaves a lot of challenge on their financial for them to continue with this program.
Yeah.
It's taking a huge toll on them.
What lines of communication are there between yourselves and the Department of Education in the province? What explanations are being proffered?
The Department of Education decided to disappear from us when we raised a critical issue on how are we going to fix this problem, because we have identified the root cause of this problem, because we know that at some point there might be some system problems and whatsoever. But the main root cause that we have identified, all of us, ourselves in the department, was the issue of rates that were given for the food commodities. We have agreed that the benchmark process that was done by the department to quantify the food commodities was not a correct method. For example, the service providers are compensated R1.25 for a grade A fruit, whereas in any market you will find a fruit not less than R3. So that means the service providers are supplementing the department instead of the service providers generating profit in this program.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Thabang Mncwabe is the spokesperson for the KwaZulu-Natal National School Nutrition Program Service Providers Association. You can only imagine the ripple effect of that, of what Thabang has just described in terms of the delivery of quality food, in terms of the National School Nutrition Program, what the implications of that are if those service providers are not paid, and the kinds of disputes that he describes. Let's see if there'll be any response from the department, hopefully within the coming days here on the show. But for now, let's check in with N. Musa with the latest news.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. Now that's good news.
In our top stories, Patco buses operating in Mpumalanga after suspected arson attacks, and SEDEC chairperson condemns attacks on peacekeepers in the DRC. Good morning. Patco Bus Company says it has continued to operate in Mpumalanga under heightened supervision. This after it confirmed earlier that 2 of its workers had been wounded in an incident in which 47 of its buses were torched in the province. Patco says attacks have been reported at 4 of its depots. Initial reports indicate that an unknown group of assailants ambushed and bound security at the Moloto depot. They then set buses alight and opened fire inside the depot. Patco says additional depots have also reported buses being set on fire. Patco spokesperson Lendo Kuhle Xulu.
The rampage spread throughout the night, with additional depots reporting buses set alight were burnt across the following depots: the Moloto Depot, Volvekral Depot, Siabusa Depot, and Valbank Depot. Despite the damage, PADCO's buses are continuing to operate in the affected areas under heightened supervision. The company is cooperating with law enforcement authorities in the ongoing investigations.
The case of former Johannesburg Mayor Kabelo Gwamanda and a co-accused will resume in the Protea Magistrates Court today in Soweto. Gwamanda is facing charges of fraud after allegedly defrauding Soweto residents in a funeral policy scheme. It's reported that some of his alleged victims opened a case last year. Gwamanda handed himself over to police in October last year. Thulasizwe Simelane reports.
The Financial Sector Conduct Authority investigation last year revealed that Gwamanda, who is an Altamar councillor, allegedly operated an illegal business in 2012. Last year, the case against the former mayor of Johannesburg, Kabelo Gwamanda, and his co-accused case had been postponed to the 17th of December for disclosure and trial certificates. His defense lawyer, Gregory Armstrong, maintains that the allegations against his clients are false and they will be waiting for the state to disclose their dockets.
The Northern Cape Correctional Services Department has condemned an attack of a prison official in Kimberley. The incident happened at the Tsolopile Correctional Centre. The official was admitted to hospital after an inmate stabbed him. The department spokesperson Singaba Konxumalo says the incident is worrying.
We continuously caution inmates against engaging in such unsavory acts. Our strategy to combat gangsterism directly addresses these allegations, and our officials are regularly reminded of its importance. We do believe that this is not the time for grandstanding or speculations on the type of training provided to our officials.
The South African Weather Service has advised the public to use social media platforms to get weather updates. This after it experienced a security breach on Sunday evening. It resulted in the collapse of its information and communication technology systems. The Weather Service's Senior Manager, Opa Sigalwe.
The South African Weather Service email system and website, which is the hub of critical weather information, have been affected. However, alternative ways of disseminating important information such as weather forecasts have been put in place. The South African Weather Service ICT service providers have been on site since the attack, not only to investigate the breach, but also to explore both interim and long-term ways of restoring the collapsed systems. The South African Weather Service is in the process of reporting the criminal act to relevant authorities.
And finally, SADC chairperson, Zimbabwe's President Emmerson Mnangagwa has expressed concern on the security situation in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. 9 South African soldiers were killed when the regional body's troops engaged in a fierce battle with the M23 rebels in the town of Goma on Friday. Titaba Tsotetsi reports.
In a statement, the SADC chairperson, Emmerson Mnangagwa, has condemned the attacks on the UN and SADC peacekeepers in the DRC. He says that the regional organization will assume its responsibility and take action on the deteriorating situation in the Eastern DRC. The M23 rebels took control of Goma City and many have fled their homes following the fighting in the area. Mnangagwa has also sent his condolences to the families of the peacekeepers and wishes those injured a speedy recovery.
Recapping the top story, Patco Bus Company says it has continued to operate in Mpumalanga under heightened supervision after it confirmed earlier that 2 of its workers had been wounded in an incident in which 47 of its buses were torched in the province. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Those were the top stories for this hour. Don't miss out on a possible car insurance saving. SMS out to 30754 for a quote. Outsurance, where you always get something out.
This January, to save money, you could cut back on the family price, or you could switch to Outsurance and save on your car insurance premium. Get a quote, and if Outsurance can't beat your car insurance premium, ask them for 500 Rand cash. And make that 1,500 Rand cash if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. With Outsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Very busy in Century, and the closure at John Foster and Raby Street at the Helms River Bridge remains in place, and it just forces a lot of traffic, particularly along the old Johannesburg Road, as the alternative sort of a loop around that. Still very busy. Coming in from Eldorado Park, or to Eldorado Park from Lenasia and Protea Glen. The N12's under some real pressure this morning from the first of the Lenasia exits right through to the Golden Highway off-ramp. Durban, a breakdown into going north before Gateway. If you're on your way to the airport, that's reasonably heavy. There's also been a crash on the M7 heading towards the bluff at the M2. So from Queensborough, that all backs up. And if you're going the other way on the M7, very heavy backlogs from Hunsdetman up into St John's Avenue Bridge territory. Cape Town crash on the N7 south at Plattercliff Road. R300's heavy again this morning from Delft moving through towards Van Riebeek Road. And just an update on Baden-Powell Drive. The road is closed at Monwabisi. That's a full closure at the bottom of Khayelitsha. And then the situation between Muizenberg and Strandfontein, the road is open going towards Muizenberg, but closed coming out of Muizenberg towards Strandfontein, and that's due to sand on the carriageways. A lot of congestion around Strandfontein area this morning. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
A very good morning to you in your SFM Sports Headlines. It is soccer news. Bafana to face Egypt. That's in AFCON 2025 in Morocco. And we also have cricket action. The Paarl Royals, they dispatched the Durban Super Giants by 6 wickets in their SA20 clash at Boland Park. All these sports stories and more at around 7:30.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
Hey, good morning, folks. We are into the second hour of the morning brief here on SAFM. I'm Thulasizwe Simelane. It's good to be in your company on this Tuesday morning. Let me tell you what's coming up. A bit later on in this hour, just before 8 a.m., we will focus on that judgment out of the Gauteng Provincial Division of the High Court, and that is in Pretoria, basically to do with the social grants system. The long and short of it is that the court has found it to be unacceptable and unconstitutional for the state government to put administrative barriers to people to try and curtail the number of people who qualify and are able to successfully apply for the 370 Rand per month social relief of distress grant. I've been asking you, in light of that judgment, is this the moment of reckoning with what we need to do to rejig our social grants system, given the levels of unemployment and poverty that we face in this country? Weigh in on that. The number to dial is 086 000 2032, as well as your WhatsApp voice notes on 061 410 4107. Coming up in the next 30 minutes, though, we will focus a bit on the signing of an executive order by Donald Trump that basically reinstates what is known as the Global Gag Rule, also known as the Mexico City policy. This is the policy that says basically it's a federal policy that holds U.S. funding to overseas groups that provide abortion services and support for women seeking abortions. It has implications for us here at home, and we will focus on that in just a moment. The situation in the DRC also under sharp focus, as you heard the news of the M23 rebels now officially being in Goma. The SABC's international news editor, Sophie Mkwena, will come through and give us a sense of what the diplomatic maneuvers are in play to try and deal with that situation. Again, all of your regulars, again, locked and loaded in this hour. Your calls, 086 000 2032, as well as your WhatsApp voice notes, 061 410 4107. This is SAFM. We are leading the conversations that move us. The second hour of the Tuesday edition of the Morning Brief starts now.
It's time to shine for young athletes across South Africa. From thrilling football and rugby matches to intense netball games. Experience the passion and prowess of Mzansi's finest young sports stars. Super Sports Schools and SABC Plus bring you the specially curated channel dedicated entirely to school and youth sports. Join us as we celebrate their achievements and bring the excitement right to your screens. This is your chance to support the future of South African sports. The Super Sports Schools channel on SABC Plus, where every game is a home game. Don't miss a moment. Download the SABC Plus app today. Available on iOS, Google, and Smart TV. Or visit sabc-plus.com to start streaming. Super Sports Schools on SABC Plus. All the sport you care about most. Now streaming wherever you are. The Toffees are well aware that only maximum points will help them out of the bottom half.
Lewin, great feat, brilliance, absolutely superbly done. Calvert-Lewin for Everton.
Meanwhile, the Foxes believe they are in dire need of victory to run away from trouble.
He's Jordan Ayew, back to goal. Jordan Ayew scored for Leicester City, and those Leicester fans are celebrating wildly.
This is the Premier League. Experience the superb contest, Everton FC versus Leicester City FC, on Saturday 1 February at 4:30 p.m. live on SABC3. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
This January, to save money, you could turn off the house lights and use your cell phone's flashlight. Or you could switch to Outsurance and save on your car insurance premium. Get a quote, and if Outsurance can't beat your car insurance premium, ask them for 500 Rand cash. And make that 1,500 Rand cash if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. With Outsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP, T's and C's online.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
So we start this hour focusing on the situation in the DRC. The M23 rebel group has now officially captured Goma, the largest city in the eastern region of the Democratic Republic of Congo. According to reports, the capture of Goma has triggered a sharp escalation in regional diplomatic tensions. Let's welcome Sophie Mkwena, who is SABC News International News Editor. Good morning to you, Sophie, and thank you for your time this morning. So there's lots of complexity, isn't there? Not only regional, but global. Tell me about the diplomatic maneuverings that have been happening in the last few hours to try and arrest the situation in Goma in the DRC.
Late last night, President Cyril Ramaphosa spoke to the Rwandan President Paul Kagame about this matter. You would recall that last year when Rwanda was commemorating the 30th commemoration of the Rwandan genocide where 1 million Tutsis were killed, the president did have a meeting with President Paul Kagame talking about this issue extensively and other issues that are related to bilateral relations between South Africa and the Rwandan authorities. They even briefed the president, former South African President Thabo Mbeki. President Ramaphosa spoke to the former South African President Thabo Mbeki, who was also attending the commemoration, about his discussions with President Paul Kagame. Now, yesterday again, they spoke about this matter, and there's an agreement that there must be cessation of hostilities and that peace talks must resume. On the other hand, you have the President of Kenya, William Ruto, who is the chair of the East African Community, who have called on the leaders to meet in Kenya. He spoke to President Paul Kagame and President Felix Tshisekedi on Sunday night and indicated that they will meet in 48 hours, but we are not sure whether that meeting will continue today, as you know that with the escalation, one person might cite the issues of security, particularly DRC, because you know that they expelled the EAC forces and requested SADC to come in as a sign of not really trusting East Africa.
So what I'm picking up from what you are saying, Sophie, is the centrality of Rwanda to trying to halt, at least for now, the hostilities, and perhaps even in terms of a long-term solution to the problem. Just outline for us the centrality of Rwanda in this conflict and how it's playing out.
You know that Rwanda and the DRC has been engaged in diplomatic spurt, and also in terms of that conflict in the eastern part of the DRC, because Rwanda is accusing the DRC of harboring the genocides, the people who killed the Tutsis 30 years ago. They are currently, as a force in the DRC, fighting side by side with the government forces of the DRC, supporting the government of the DRC. Genocides supporting the government of the DRC. Now, on the other hand, you have now the Rwandan forces backing the M23 rebel, and the reason being, we are trying to push these guys because they are using your country to attack us. They want to come back and push for attacks in the DRC. So you have to bring in the Rwandan government in the negotiations because of that border between Rwanda and the DRC in the eastern part. And I think that is where Paul Kagame is critical. You'd recall even during the Sun City talks some years ago, when there was an attempt to resolve problem of the Congolese, the Rwandan government was also invited, including some countries in the Great Lakes region. You can only resolve the DRC problem if you bring all role players in the Great Lakes region.
Not to mention, Sophie, the reported exchanges of fire between the forces of the government of the DRC and the Rwandan forces around the border. Finally, Sophie, tell me about the further work that is being done by the UN, particularly the Security Council. A few days ago, they received a briefing. I believe they are due to meet once again on this situation.
Yes, it will be condemnation, calls, nothing, because you'd recall the very same DRC expelled the MONUSCO forces. You'd remember that they withdrew yesterday. You still have them at the airport in Goma, maybe final wrapping up, leaving, and therefore they are not well capacitated. They are not at that position where they can engage in an intervention. As you know that previously they were given a mandate to intervene, not only to be peacekeepers, but as intervention forces. And therefore it is very difficult. We saw yesterday President William Ruto speaking to the President of France, Emmanuel Macron, and the new Secretary of State of the United States of America. But there lies a problem. How do you call Emmanuel Macron of France, France that was fingered during the genocide in Rwanda, to be part of the solution? How do you call the United States of America? You ignore the regional players, the countries in the region. You call France and the United States of America. Have we forgotten Libya? Have we forgotten Iraq? That's poor leadership.
Sophie Mkwena is SABC News International News Editor. You can't buy experience like that. So look out for more of Sophie Mkwena's reporting, leading the team in reporting on the situation in the DRC. Let's stay with that issue and bring in Christian Rumu, who is the Amnesty International campaigner in Nairobi. And the reason we do that is that Amnesty International is concerned about the escalating use of explosive weapons by both the Rwandan-backed M23 rebel group and the Congolese army in densely populated areas of eastern DRC. Let's bring into the conversation Christian Rumu, as I said. Good morning to you and thank you for your time. So you are concerned about particular types of weapons that you are saying are being used in that arena of conflict, and you're saying that using them in the densely populated area like Goma poses risks to civilians. Tell me which weapons these are and what you've seen the impact to be of the use of these weapons.
what we have observed even throughout the day yesterday was the continued indiscriminate shootings and also use of explosives. In our statement that we issued last week, that was looking at the use of explosives in a span of 7 months, we were documenting the use of both the DRC and M23 of unguided rocket and missiles, and some of them are 122 mm grade rockets that have been used by the M23 and the DRC government. And this, what we have seen yesterday in Goma, it's quite worrying because the use of this type of weapons in a densely populated area like Goma, but also previously in other localities, poses a greater risk to civilians' life.
And I imagine that you are also monitoring the flow of these weapons, where they are coming from, and perhaps with a view to ensuring that there's accountability in terms of international law for use of such weapons in densely populated areas?
Yeah, we haven't been able to do that by ourselves, but the UN group of experts has had quite an extensive research on those types of weapons, heavy weapons, in the hands of the M23 and the DRC government. And we do hope that now that the ICC has relaunched its investigation into North Kivu and other region of the DRC, this will be part of their investigation to ensure that there is accountability of all those involved in supplying this type of weaponry or using this type of weaponry.
And you say this, Christian, because you have observed over a period of time. I believe you were observing between January and July last year the civilian fatalities that were as a result of the use of these weapons.
Yes, indeed. And we also, throughout the day yesterday, our monitoring of the situation in Goma indicate that there have been use of heavy weaponry in Goma itself. So that indicates that, our call from last week was not clearly heard by both parties in this conflict, and they continue using this heavy weaponry in these densely populated areas.
All right, thank you for that. That's Christian Rumu, who is the Amnesty International campaigner based in Nairobi, just putting on another layer of complexity that has to do with the kinds of weapons that are being used in that arena of battle in Goma, in the Eastern DRC in general.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
There will be joy and heartbreak at the Groenkloof Tennis Stadium in Pretoria. South Africa takes on Nigeria. The South is up against the West. This is the Davis Cup World Group 2 tie, the World Cup of tennis. Witness the spectacular tennis battle between South Africa and Nigeria on Saturday 1 February at 11 a.m. and Sunday 2 February at 10:30 a.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. You can also catch the Sunday action on SABC 3. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Fly Sapphire is proud to share that we've been named the most on-time airline in Africa and the Middle East for a second year in a row. This award by Cirium, the world's leader in aviation analytics, is proof of how important your time is to us and how we genuinely care about getting you to your destinations and loved ones on time, every time. Because each second saved is a moment gained, and we strive to keep making every moment count. Fly Sapphire, for the love of flying.
SAFM values your views. Be an active citizen.
26 minutes after 7, the Seoul City Institute for Social Justice is condemning the reinstatement of the global gag rule, also known as the Mexico City policy, under the new Trump administration in the United States. The institute says the policy undermines critical healthcare services for women, girls, and marginalized communities, particularly in South Africa and other parts of the world. Let's welcome Ponzo Pilane, who is the Seoul City Institute Communications and Advocacy Manager. Good morning to you, and thank you for your time. So for anyone who hasn't heard of the global gag rule, the Mexico City policy, please explain it to us.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. The global gag rule is this rule, for a lack of better, or law, that comes into effect with every Republican president, where foreign aid from the U.S. cannot be used by foreign NGOs or organizations to promote, to talk, or even to refer people to termination of pregnancy services. And what we've seen is that as Trump has gone into office, he has reinstated the global gag rule. But just like in 2017 when he went into office, what is more devastating about Trump's reiteration of this is that if organizations find themselves using even money from other funders to promote, to perform, or to refer for abortion services, that they risk having to pay back the money to the U.S. So it's a real devastation, and it comes on top of even the executive order for the 90-day stop on all foreign aid that the U.S. is giving, which Trump put into place last week. And the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, said that all work must stop immediately.
Sure. So is it your understanding then that organizations that do provide that kind of support for women around issues of choice on termination of pregnancy, even if they're not using the money that is coming from aid from the U.S., money coming from elsewhere, just merely using that would also then preclude them from financial support from the U.S.?
Yes, this is how it happened in 2017. But I'd like to also clarify that this does not just affect abortion services. It affects sexual and reproductive health programs, HIV programs, maternal health care, and even the prevention of GBV. So because the health system is integrated, and a lot of organizations that offer abortion services or HIV services are integrated together, these are all impacted. And what we see is that even though in South Africa, our Constitution and the Termination of Pregnancy Act gives us a loophole, we see it still being implemented because of the fears and confusions around whether organizations funded by U.S. aid money would be impacted.
Practically, how will the impact be felt in South Africa? Give me examples of services and organizations that are likely to be affected by this.
So even just yesterday, two prominent organizations released announcements that their services are either ending, they ended yesterday, or they're ending today at 4 p.m. This is because of the stop order that I mentioned earlier. When it comes to the global gag rule, what we've seen from the research that was done in the previous Trump administration is that the maternal mortality rates increased, HIV and other sexual reproductive health services were also impacted in a negative way, where people could not access even those services because of what I explained as the integration of health services.
And Ponzo, I don't believe that this executive order that has to do with a halt to all aid has actually been given the attention that it deserves. So you're saying we're already living with the consequences of that aspect, let alone the aspect that has to do with the global gag rule?
Yes, absolutely. You know, when we think about foreign aid and what it does in South Africa. South Africa, for instance, is one of the most, the country that gets most funding from the Presidential Emergency Fund for AIDS Relief, which is short for PEPFAR. And what we see is that this impacts also research institutions that are doing research for HIV prevention, treatment, and care. It affects services for trans, queer, women, and just health HIV services, such as other organizations that do test and treat programs across the country to ensure that people get onto treatment or they prevent it. It affects services for PrEP, which is the HIV prevention pill. It affects services for PEP, which is the HIV when you've been exposed or you think you may have been exposed to HIV. So this impacts on for instance, rape victims and survivors getting these services if they have been violated and they might have been exposed to HIV as a precaution they go on PEP medication.
Ponzo, thank you so much for vividly painting the ripple effects of some of the decisions taken from behind the Resolute desk at the White House. That's Ponzo Pilane. She is the Soul City Institute Communications and Advocacy Manager. Let's check in with N. Musa with the latest news headlines.
Good morning. Thanks to us. In the headlines, Patco Bus Company says investigations are underway into an incident in which 47 of its buses were torched in Mpumalanga. 2 of its workers were wounded. The case of former Johannesburg Mayor Kabelo Gwamanda and a co-accused will resume in the Protea Magistrates Court in Soweto today. Gwamanda is facing charges of fraud after allegedly defrauding Soweto residents in a funeral policy scheme. And President Cyril Ramaphosa and his Rwandan counterpart Paul Kagame have spoken telephonically about the security situation in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. I'll have details on these and other stories at 8.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Some quite heavy traffic out of Pretoria this morning on your way down towards Joburg. There are 2 crash scenes on the M1 South. There's a collision at Botha Avenue and a crash at John Foster Drive. So that traffic just after Rigel Avenue gets a bit backed up, and then you sort of sit from Brockfontein all the way through to New Road. The other real sort of interesting bit that we're watching is the run from Lenasia, Eldorado Park, from Protea Glen this morning. Some really heavy traffic. N12 Potch Highway onto the N1 North, up past Eldos, up through Devlin and through the Deepcliff interchange down towards Uncle Charlie's. That's really extreme traffic. If you're ducking out of that, you're going to run into some trouble at the Golden Highway exit up towards sort of Sun City and Southgate area as well. So a lot of traffic disruption that side. I think a lot of motorists are avoiding that and just jamming up the Golden Highway, Nirvana Drive junction as well. Over in Durban, a crash on the M7 Bluff bound at the N2 highway. It's quite a heavy backlog from Queensborough side. That breakdown still with us before Gateway. Heavy queues from just after Queen Nundy Drive. The crash scene up at Harry Smith through to Warden. That has been cleared. All lanes have been reopened there. And Cape Town, a lot of disruption this morning around Strandfontein area. The latest on Baden Powell, closed at Coastal Park. Closed at Monwabisi, Khayelitsha side. That's a full closure. The Coastal Park side, Baden Powell is open coming from Strandfontein, but there's some heavy disruption, and it is closed going from Muizenberg towards Strandfontein. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
So Zai is done nursing the after effects of her rigorous tennis session.
Yeah.
She can stand now. She's able to stand. So, that back is holding up. Tell me.
I'm back.
Bafana, Zai.
Yeah.
We now know who's going to take on who when the AFCON starts in December this year.
In December this year. And you know what? We may have Mo Salah and Egypt in our group. But remember 2019 when Thembakosi Lorch, he was the Pharaoh Slayer. So I think we've got history on our side, and we're going to go forth and conquer like we do as well on this platform. This is the contest that's set for 2025 Africa Cup of Nations in Morocco. South Africa is placed in Group B alongside neighbours Zimbabwe as well and Angola. But there will be some tests against Egypt led by the Liverpool superstar Mohamed Salah. History is on Bafana's side. They've beaten Egypt twice on their home home turf in recent years. Coach Hugo Broos' team heads into the tournament unbeaten in their qualifiers, boasting 14 points and an impressive 16 goals. Now, the Bafana assistant coach, Helman Mkalele, believes their AFCON 2025 group will be manageable with teams that they are familiar with.
I knew that with a huge number of SADC teams, qualified for the competition, then I knew that two of them will be drawn in our group, and I'm not surprised that we are drawn with Zimbabwe. But our reaction is that, it's a tough group. It's a tough group, and for the fact that we know each other, and also all teams have improved. So for us, we will try to make sure that we continue where we left off in terms of the African Cup of Nations. We'll continue to make sure that our team move a step higher, because we want to make sure again that we continue to be an inspiration to the young and upcoming aspiring kids, to play football.
That's Bafana assistant coach Helman Mkalele here on the morning brief. Now, Sekhukhune United, they claim a 2-0 victory over Cape Town City in a Nedbank Cup last 32 match played at the old Peter Mokaba Stadium in Polokwane last night. Elsewhere, Kyle Walker was presented in Italy after sealing his loan move to AC Milan from Manchester City. Walker has been a mainstay in Man City's defence since 2017. His speed and recovery abilities key to the way Pep Guardiola sets up the team. Let's hear from Kyle Walker.
I could have stayed in Manchester. I still had a contract there, and I would have warranted that contract if they wouldn't have let me leave. That's just me as a person. But I think it comes down to challenges in life. I think sometimes you find yourself in a little bit of a situation where you think, okay, I need to try something different. And I've spoke to many players, many ex-players that have not really moved on or moved abroad in the different league of the Premier League, and they kind of said to me, I wish I experienced it.
Cricket action, Jason Rolls and Mohamed Bulbulia came close to hitting centuries, and South Africa's under-19 men responded well on the second day of the first youth test against England, taking place in Stellenbosch. After dismissing England for 299 in the morning session, the South Africans replied with 269 for 8, a deficit of just 30 runs. And that's your sport on the morning brief. We'll keep our eye on the ball. We'll be back again with more at the top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
The Business Update on SAFM.
Let's say good morning once again to Odwa Makwenju. Good morning to you, Odwa. Tell me about Lewis Group giving a trading update for quarter 3.
Yes, they gave a trading update in the early mornings showing very strong sales numbers, revenue up by 13.6%, and they attribute this to improving consumer sentiment and also the strong marketing campaign. What I found very interesting with the results is that, with sales rising, a lot of it came from credit sales, up by 13.1%, meaning that we are seeing people still buying in on credit on that front. And the revenue from credit also grew for the business, up by 19.6%. So it's showing that the business is well suited both for cash fees and cash revenue and also credit revenue.
Tell me, in other company news, tell me a bit about BAT and their share buyback and how that has helped them, climb in terms of earnings.
Yeah, so British American Tobacco had a recent sell-off from Raynet, selling off their stake in the business, so the share did pull back. However, yesterday, a mixture of good news coming about. Firstly, UBS stating that they are moving the company to a buy, and mainly because of nicotine patches that they're going to be introducing. That's where they saw that. However, as you said, they also mentioned that a share buyback where they're looking to target to buy shares at 29 pounds, close to 130 shares, 130,000 shares they're looking to buy. The total deal is looking at close to 400 million pounds in a share buyback. The share price went up by 4% yesterday, and furthermore, lastly, the Trump administration is also looking to prevent a planned ban on menthol cigarettes in the United States. So all of these good news in one day had the share price up by more than 4%.
All right, give us another roundup, please, of the markets here at home and elsewhere in the world.
Okay, starting off locally, we have the dollar against the rand at 18.82, against the euro 19.65, and against the pound 23.42. And in terms of where it closed, the markets closed at up only 0.18%. That's the top 40. Resources down by 1.67%, and the industrial sector up by 1.08%. In terms of international indices, if we look at the futures, we starting in the United States, we have the Dow Jones currently up by 0.65%, S&P 500 down by 1.4%, and the NASDAQ still down by 3.07%. Currently, Asian markets, the Hong Kong is closed. They traded half day, but they're closed up by 0.34%. Nikkei is currently down by 1.73%. And that's the international market.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's Otto Makwenchu. He will have one more update for you just after 8:30 and ahead of the resumption of trade for this Tuesday on the JSE.
The Toffees are well aware that only maximum points will help them out of the bottom half.
Lewin, great feat, brilliance, absolutely superbly done. Calvert-Lewin for Everton.
Meanwhile, the Foxes believe they are in dire need of victory to run away from trouble.
It's Jordan Ayew, back in goal. Jordan Ayew scored for Leicester City, and those Leicester fans are celebrating wildly.
This is the Premier League. Experience the superb contest, Everton FC versus Leicester City FC, on Saturday 1 February at 4:30 p.m. live on SABC3. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Outsurance are experts in what they do.
They get to understand what type of business are you doing so that they can insure you properly.
It actually validates why we're with them. If you haven't called Outsurance yet, what are you waiting for?
Switch to Business Outsurance today and you could get a massive 20% discount on your business insurance premium. SMS quote to 43328. That's quote to 43328 to switch and save today. Licensed insurer and FSP. TCs and information online.
Life is too short for long-term grudges, but when it's the Soweto Derby, black and white confronts gold and black. The Buccaneers believe Yonkindao, Ibagabaga, Liaphumelela, while Amakhosi still emphasize Ikhosi, Alphela umoya. Experience Mzansi's biggest football rivalry, Orlando Pirates versus Kaizer Chiefs, on Saturday, 1 February at 2 p.m. live on SABC1 and at 3:30 p.m. on SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Africa Update on SAFM.
Hey, Sipho Mantula, good morning to you. Let's start in the DRC. That's the situation we are watching, but this time we're not talking North Kivu, we're talking South Kivu, particularly Bukavu. Tell me about these people, masses of people. I saw the pictures, the visuals coming out of there, coming out in their numbers. What was that procession all about?
Indeed, Thulas, when you look at South Kivu, Bukavu, yesterday there was a protest by young people and some civil society grassroots movement denouncing what they called complicity and silence of the international community, and also challenging the role of M23 heading towards both the North Kivu and the South Kivu. Remember, Minova, when it was captured, it's a border between South Kivu and North Kivu, Thulas. And the other issue is that when you look at the crisis now in the DRC, it has caused a mass panic that both the SADC and the AU has come out very clear to us raising the issue of the peace process, the Luanda process, the Kenyan peace process, that they should go back to those engagements. And even if we are worried about the role of MONUSCO is there to us until the end of 2025. And we have more than 13 African countries who are part of MONUSCO. So it is not only the issue of South Africa pulling out, but we have 13 African countries who have pledged solidarity with the people of Eastern DRC. It is still the question to us how the SADC will have to respond beyond engagement of what we call a megaphone diplomatic engagement between South Africa and Rwanda. What is key is also for the SADC organ, it's also key for the Peace and Security Council of the AU to step in and not allow only Geneva and Switzerland to be engaging on the matter of DRC.
I saw the SADC chairperson expressing concern, but I mean, you're absolutely right. The situation calls for far much more, and it needs to happen quite quickly. So some major shifts happening in West Africa, the Sahel region, the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, will never be the same.
That is quite true. It will be now ECOWAS from ECOWAS to us. When you look at the question of today, we are hoping that there will be an official withdrawing of Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali. They had a meeting in Ouagadougou over this weekend, and they have said that they are working on what they call a global approach of engaging with ECOWAS. Remember that ECOWAS gave them until July 2025 to can reconsider their membership. They have already formed the Alliance of the Sahel. So they are saying today there might be an announcement where they'll be pulling out of ECOWAS. Hence we are saying it might be ECOWAS.
ECOWAS to ECOWAS, Sipho. In Liberia, George Weah, the former president, gets invited to attend the State of the Nation address, as happens everywhere, including in our own country, but he says, no thank you. What's that all about?
No, just remember that the Speaker of Parliament, who was after he lost elections from the Joseph Sleepy Bukai, the House Speaker was for Nati Kofa. He was removed. Now, this was a member of his coalition. Now, there's a new member, the Speaker of Parliament, who was appointed. Now, George Weah said, I won't go and legitimize an executive and a Senate that have endorsed a new speaker. Hence, he has denied not to attend the sauna yesterday in Liberia, Monrovia. Even if we know there are still challenges in that country, George Weah still plays a key role as a former head of state.
And then let's end it off in Mozambique. It seems that there's some movement around Venancio Mondlane. What's this presidential decree when, the presidential election is disputed and at this point he's really not the president of Mozambique?
The AG, the Attorney General in Mozambique, yesterday pronounced that they are going to be investigating what they called a subverting of the principles of democratic state. Remember when Mondlane arrived 2 weeks ago, he took an oath saying he's a self-declared president. He went on his 30 measures further to raise the issue of he will be swearing in all the secretaries, head of localities, administrative posts. Now the AG is now pursuing, saying to him, you're actually violating the constitution of Mozambique. We don't know where it will go to us because we know very well Mozambique has been quiet and Venancio is giving them 100 days in terms of engaging with the government of Daniel Chapo. But here we see the AG coming very clear that they will be now investigating and probably prosecuting Venancio Mondlane.
Lastly, Sipho, in your historical archives, 2 dates under your focus this morning, 28 January 2013 and 28 January 2021. Tell me what happened.
It's almost 12 years ago when we lost this great jazz legend from Ekapa, Elanga. He moved between Cape Town, Johannesburg, Nasemafigeni, Mseli, Victor Ntoni, who passed on this day in 2013, on the 28th of January. 5 years later also, we know this was one of the great leaders, great song artists, Sibongile Khumalo, who passed at the age of 66 also to us. And you remember, Sibongile Khumalo was involved in the inauguration of Nelson Mandela in 1994. He was also a critical person when you talk of cultural diplomacy, Sibongile Khumalo. So these are 2 great artists that we never talk about, but they have played their role in this country, passing at both at the middle age of 60 Thulas, and they've played their role once more in the continent as well as in South Africa. Asante sana Thulas, as we are still leading the conversation, SAFM observing the Education Month.
Sipho, thank you once again. Always fascinating. That's Sipho Mantula there with your Africa update.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning, kicking off in Eastern Cape. Some quite heavy rain across East London region. Drive carefully there. And down the road a little bit at Dutoit. You want to avoid that area at this stage. Protesting, central area, traffic gridlocked. I've just put some pictures of that scene up on Twitter at Traffic SA. You can have a look. You can see burning tyres. You can see smoke willowing from various locations right in that central Dutoit area. Some very heavy traffic disruption. Good idea to stay away from that region until that situation is sorted out. Joburg's N1 North coming in from Devlin, Golden Highway exits of the N12 from that point, from the Eldos exit on the N12 onto the N1, up through Devlin, into the Deepcliff interchange. Very heavy backlogs, big spillover onto the Golden Highway coming off the N1 at Devlin and routing up through towards Southgate as well. A lot of traffic disruption between, well, really Rampark Ridge and Sunninghill. Lots of traffic lights down on those key routes, Bayers, Nordia, Malabongwe, Cedar Road, William Mandela Main Road, already buckling under pressure of big volumes and no traffic light control at multiple junctions. Durban having a busy one into both ways, jam-packed through Spaghetti Junction, south from Umgeni, north from the M7. There's a breakdown at Pavilion Mall going out of Durban. That's quite heavy through Spaghetti Junction towards Pinetown. Crash on the M7 at the N2. If you're Queensborough bound, that's heavy. Beg pardon, from Queensborough towards the Bluff. It's the M7 going east at the N2 where the crash is. And the M4, a collision at Clarewood this morning, so coming through from Jacobs, Southern Freeway on your way to Durban is heavy, and the N2 remains heavily backed up towards the airport. A breakdown before Gateway, traffic backlogging through to Queen Nundy Drive. Cape Town, Baden-Powell open between Strandfontein and Muizenberg, very slow through Coastal Park area over that sand. It is closed from Muizenberg going east towards Strandfontein area, and everything in terms of the highways reasonably busy. Give you an indication the N1 into Cape Town sitting from Plattercliff Hill all the way through to the elevated freeway. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Get ready for the biggest laughs of the summer at the Johannesburg Comedy Festival. Saturdays at 6:30 p.m. starting 22nd December only on SABC2. Africa's largest comedy festival is back with the hottest local comedians like Celeste Ntuli, Kidiboni Mlaudzi and many more, bringing the funniest, most unforgettable vibe to your screen. Ritsweri Vibe, Ritsweri Johannesburg Comedy Festival. Download SABC Plus and stream your favorite shows anytime, anywhere. All SASA Gold cards will stop working on the 28th of February 2025. Replace yours today with the new Postbank Black Card at no cost. Join hundreds of thousands of grant beneficiaries already receiving their grants on their new Postbank Black Cards. For your convenience, you can collect your card at multiple locations nationwide. Card replacement points are at selected ShopRite Checkers, Pick n Pay and Boxer stores. To find a location near you, dial *120 *218 *3 hash. Don't wait. Upgrade your card today for free. Trusted by millions for 150 years. Postbank, your bank.
Fly Sapphire is proud to share that we've been named the most on-time airline in Africa and the Middle East for a second year in a row. This award by Cirium, the world's leader in aviation analytics, is proof of how important your time is to us and how we genuinely care about getting you to your destinations and loved ones on time, every time. Because each second saved is a moment gained, and we strive to keep making every moment count. Fly Sapphire, for the love of flying.
Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
Yeah, let me take you to that story that I teased out at the start of the show that has to do with social grants in this country. Advocacy groups have welcomed a landmark ruling by the Gauteng Division of the High Court in Pretoria, which they say will benefit South Africans who depend on social grants. The court declared certain regulations governing the 370 Rand a month social relief of distress grant to be unconstitutional. The decision could expand access to the grant for millions of South Africans in need. Let's speak now to Elizabeth Reuters, who is the Deputy Chairperson of the campaign #PayTheGrants. Good morning and thank you for your time. So for the benefit of someone who may have missed, this judgment? What is the essence? My reading of it was that it basically came down to the state made a calculation that there are so many people who need the grants, we can't afford it, therefore we will put up administrative barriers to limit the number of people who can apply. Would that be a fair summary?
Good morning, Thulasizwe, and good morning to the listeners as well. Yes, that is definitely a fair summary, but it's actually not true. The government is aware that so many people actually need this grant, and South Africa does have the money to pay these beneficiaries. I don't think that you can introduce a grant and not look at the amount of beneficiaries that needs to access this grant. So I think we need to go back to the drawing board with SASSA and social development and actually fix all these errors that has been made in this grant.
So what are the implications of this judgment then? Because it seems it's been read as it will expand the number of people who are eligible for the social relief of distress grant.
We are actually hopeful that the department does implement all these new regulations that the court has put down, because it will actually help beneficiaries who've been struggling for years to access the SRD grant. And those are actually the beneficiaries who have been unfairly excluded since the grant started, since 2020. But in 2020, the number was much higher. The number started dropping in March 2022, when SASSA started bringing in all these new regulations. And this is actually where they started excluding deserving beneficiaries. This will really be a landmark for social protection in South Africa.
And then tell me about those regulations. Would you say that, which ones would you say were the most problematic that have now been struck down? Would I be correct in saying the ones perhaps that had to do with the bank verification method would have been among those that were most problematic?
Yes, definitely, because that actually was a big part of why beneficiaries were actually excluded, because the bank would give this data to SASSA that you received money in your bank account, and that will actually help SASSA to exclude you for that month of payment. So I think that's one of the biggest barriers. The second one will be the technology. Technology plays a big role in this grant, as this grant has no in-person applications. Everything is online. So not everyone has access to a smartphone or internet. So that was also one of the biggest issues we had.
And we're also learning from the judgment, Elizabeth, and I suppose you in civil society knew this already because your organization was part of the those that took this case up. But we also learned that the databases of government, your Home Affairs, National Student Financial Aid Scheme, SARS, and the UIF are perhaps not so reliable as to base decision making on who should qualify and who shouldn't qualify for the grant. Were you surprised by this?
No, we were not actually surprised, because we have worked with beneficiaries on the ground who have not been employed for over 10 years, but is still on the UIF system. So each month they will be declined for UIF registered, because the databases that SASSA is using is so outdated.
So tell me what then the next steps should be in terms of, I was asking earlier on if this is a moment of reckoning with the social security system, particularly the social grants, given what we know from work done by the World Bank, for example, about how impactful they can be in the fight against poverty in this country. Is this the moment to finally now table once and for all and plan and execute those plans around issues such as the basic income grant?
I really do think it's time for the universal basic income grant to be implemented. We've had a SRD year after year being extended. So we need something more permanent for these beneficiaries between the ages of 18 and 59 who is unemployed, because previously there was no provision for these beneficiaries. So I think this is definitely the right time to start talking about a universal basic income grant and implement it as well.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time. That's Elizabeth Reuters, who is the deputy chairperson of the hashtag Pay the Grants. So if you do have a moment, do pick up that judgment and actually read it for yourself. It is scathing in its assessment of some of the practices that were being employed in assessing who qualifies for the SRD grant, which the judgment says, far from being temporary as it was at the start, has actually now become permanent. 8 a.m. Let's check in with N. Musa now with the news. And that's the news for this hour. Theft, accident and 1 million rand liability cover, all covered by Outsurance Essential. Get a quote today. SMS CAR to 43187.
In our top stories, trial of alleged underworld boss set to continue, and President Ramaphosa and his Rwandan counterpart discuss Eastern DRC situation. Good morning. The trial of alleged underworld boss Nafiz Modak and former rugby player turned debt collector Zain Kilan will continue in the High Court in Cape Town this morning. This after their bid to have charges against them withdrawn failed yesterday. Modak and Kilan are accused of the murder of top detective Charles Kinnear. The two, along with 13 others, are facing more than 100 charges, including murder and attempted murder. National Prosecuting Authority spokesperson Eric Ntabazalila.
In terms of the other charges, which are the major charges, that is the murder of Mr. Kinnear, the attempted murder of the others, as well as the murder of Jens Gab, those ones he's going to be facing them.
The case of former Johannesburg Mayor Kabelo Gwamanda and a co-accused will resume in the Protea Magistrates Court in Soweto today. Gwamanda is facing charges of fraud after allegedly defrauding Soweto residents in a funeral policy scheme. It's reported that some of his alleged victims opened a case last year. Gwamanda handed himself over to police in October last year. Thulasizwe Simelane reports.
The Financial Sector Conduct Authority investigation last year revealed that Gwamanda, who is an Algemar councillor, allegedly operated an illegal business in 2012. Last year, the case against the former mayor of Johannesburg, Kabelo Gwamanda, and his co-accused case had been postponed to the 17th of December for disclosure and trial certificates. His defense lawyer, Gregory Armstrong, maintains that the allegations against his clients are false and they will be waiting for the state to disclose their dockets.
Patco Bus Company says investigations are underway into an incident in which more than 40 of its buses were torched in Mpumalanga. 2 of its workers were wounded. Patco says attacks have been reported at 4 of its depots. Initial reports indicate that an unknown group of assailants ambushed and bound security at the Moloto depot. They then set buses alight. Additional depots have also reported buses being set on fire. Earlier, Patco said its operations had continued in the province. Lindokuhle Xulu is the company's spokesperson.
The rampage spread throughout the night, with additional depots reporting buses set alight were burnt across the following depots: the Moloto Depot, Volvekral Depot, Siabusa Depot and Valbank Depot. Despite the damage, Patco's buses are continuing to operate in the affected areas under heightened supervision. The company is cooperating with law enforcement authorities in the ongoing investigations.
President Cyril Ramaphosa and his Rwandan counterpart Paul Kagame have spoken telephonically about the security situation in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. Government officials in the DRC have announced that the army is now controlling most of the town of Goma. However, the M23 rebels insist that they are in control. Our international editor, Sophie Mukwena, has the details.
The conflict has escalated in the eastern part of the DRC, with the M23 movement saying it has captured Goma. Last week, 9 South African soldiers were killed when the M23 was advancing towards Goma. In the discussion, both President Cyril Ramaphosa and President Paul Kagame agreed that ceasefire must resume and peace negotiations must begin.
And finally, Brazil has summoned U.S. ambassador in Brasilia after deported migrants arrived in handcuffs with their ankles shackled. It describes the practice as a disregard for migrant rights. Meanwhile, the U.S. has continued the deportations. Yesterday, hundreds of migrants were flown back to Guatemala. Colombia used 2 military aircrafts to repatriate its nationals. U.S. President Donald Trump addressed the deportations at a meeting of Republicans in Florida.
Very importantly, America is respected again. After years of laughing at us like we're stupid people, we've made it clear to every country that they will be taking back the criminals, the illegal aliens, and if they don't, they'll pay a very high economic price.
Recapping the top story, the trial of alleged underworld boss Nafiz Modak and former rugby player turned debt collector Zane Killen will continue in the High Court in Cape Town this morning. This after their bid to have charges against them withdrawn failed yesterday. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
And that's the news for this hour. Theft, accident and 1 million rand liability cover, all covered by Outsurance Essential. Get a quote today, SMS CAR to 43187.
SAFM. Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Urgent announcement for motorists driving through the Eastern Cape. Stay off the N2 through Dutwa for this morning, I would think. There's some quite aggressive protesting going on in the town centre, in the central Dutwa area. There's all sorts of rioting going on now. Some of these protesters entering shops, that's what we're hearing. Vehicles are being stoned, burning tyres, smoke billowing all over Dutwa. Just avoid travel through that area. Joburg this morning, the N1 coming up from El Dorado Park through Devlin into Diepkloof remains a problem. There's some very heavy traffic heading into Rosebank today as well. If you come from that Linden Victory Park area along 6th Street, 7th Avenue in towards Rosebank, really big backlogs. Just a little bit further south, Chester is also very slow as well. Long queues to get into Santon on Winnie Mandela from Bryanston High School for a turn onto Santon Drive. Behind that, Republic Road out of Randburg is really heavy as well. Durban, the N2 North, just give yourself time to get through to the airport. There's heavy pressure between the M7 and Westwood Mall, and then a crash after Queen Anne Drive, a breakdown before Gateway, so it's all really heavily backed up at a couple of locations. Cape Town this morning, the Baden-Powell section between Strandfontein and Muizenberg is open but stays busy and heavy because of the sand. Muizenberg through to Strandfontein, that section of Baden-Powell remains closed, and it's a full closure of Baden-Powell out at Monmobisi, again because of sand. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
A very good morning to you. In your SFM sports headlines, it's soccer with Bafana drawing England, Egypt, Zimbabwe and Angola in Group B at the AFCON 2025. The SABC vows world-class AFCON coverage. And we also bring you cricket action where Joe Root was out for a first ball duck, but the Paarl Royals beat the Durban Super Giants by 6 wickets. All these stories and more at around 8:30.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
It's just gotten 8 minutes after 8 on this Tuesday. Good morning. It's good to be in your company. We're into the third hour of the morning brief here on SAFM. I'm Thulasizwe Simelane. Lots to reflect on that we have covered in the last 2 hours or so. Of course, the main talking point for me at least, and feel free to weigh in on a number of other issues. And I do see your calls already coming in on issues other than the one that I've put on the table. But the social grants decision out of the High Court in Pretoria, I think that really is a conversation that we will be having more and more, where the court found that, you know, in making a decision that it wanted to curtail the number of people who are able to apply for the 370 Rand a month social relief of distress grant, the state resorted to administrative barriers. So barriers such as that requirement of checking someone's bank account, and if any amount that's above the 624 Rand a month income threshold passes through, even if you're holding it for someone else, that automatically had the effect of precluding you and excluding you from accessing that SRD grant. Lots of other issues came to the fore. The electronic application process, all of those found to be invalid and unconstitutional. And I've been asking, is it time for us to reckon with our social grants system in as far as the ideas around a basic income grant, given the levels of poverty in our country, the affordability thereof, because the counter argument from the state is that we simply cannot afford it. The money has to come from somewhere, and our tax base is simply not wide enough. Weigh in on that conversation. And of course, that situation in the DRC, we continue to watch that as well. I wanted to also talk to you about cybersecurity. The Weather Service saying that they've suffered what they believe to have been a cybersecurity, breach. And they're not the first ones. You had a couple of years ago Transnet, you had the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development for a period of time, various other government departments. Do you get a sense that we are grappling with cybersecurity as the threat that it is, the 21st century threat that it is as a country? There's the Cyber Crimes Act, that's one thing. But in terms of government's capability, organs of state and their capability to thwart and prevent being victims of hacks, do you believe that they have it under control? I don't know. Your sense of all of these matters. Give me a call. The number to dial 086 000 2032. Your WhatsApp voice notes, I'll take those on 061 410 4107. This is SAFM. We are leading the conversations that move us. The third hour of the Tuesday edition of the Morning Brief starts now.
Owning a small or medium-sized business takes courage, skill, and determination. The Clientele Legal Business Plan is there to protect, guide, and assist your business in managing the legal risks. Let us handle your labor matters, employment contracts, CCMA referrals, and so much more. Our team of professional lawyers are standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 42770. That's SAFM to 42770. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Hey, want to check your TV license balance conveniently? Look no further. Our SMS service allows you to do just that. By sending a message containing your ID or TV license number to 44210, you can quickly access your balance without needing multiple inquiries or waiting on hold. Plus, standard SMS rates apply. Take advantage of this efficient method to stay informed and streamline your payment process today. T's and C's apply.
Whether you're having a early, snoozy, tantrumy, chill, frustrating, or jokey morning. Mornings love McDonald's, so choose happy and enjoy a Burry Burger Double and a short filter coffee for only R39.90 from 6 to 10:30 a.m. at McDonald's. Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
All right, let's take a few of your calls that have been coming through. Judith in Knysna, good morning to you. You want to talk to me about the global gag rule and the order by Trump.
Yes, good morning, Thulasizwe, and good morning to your listeners. Thulasizwe, I'm a South African, and I'm married to an Irishman. And for many, many years in Ireland, abortion was not permitted constitutionally. It was called the Eighth Amendment, and what it said was the state recognizes the right to life of the unborn child, and equally the right to life of the mother. And the state will uphold this right wherever practicable. That means if a woman is giving birth and her life's in danger, the medics could do whatever they could to save the life of the mother. And then if the child died in the process, that was like unavoidable. But the child in the womb was not targeted. Now, about 2009, there was a big movement now to overthrow the Eighth Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
And we lived through all the propaganda around that. You know, all the talk. One woman came to hospital. She was giving birth. She had sepsis. They didn't recognize the sepsis.
Sure.
And they wouldn't give her an abortion, and they said she died because of the abortion.
Judith,
In fact,
Judith, let me ask you to just quickly link that then, what you are telling me, to this global gag rule and what Trump has ruled, reinstating it. Yeah.
Well, look, Thulasizwe, the abortion industry is a multi-million industry. Why should America be responsible for taking the life of unborn children in other countries? I mean, they call it women's health. We need to step back and not have a knee-jerk reaction and say, is it really women's health?
Okay.
You know, we've heard that women suffer terribly mentally and psychologically after an abortion.
Yeah.
So why should they? And you see, they mix it up with HIV and all that. Abortion is a separate issue from HIV. HIV treatment and help can still be given.
All right.
But don't confuse the whole thing. Yeah. So
Judith,
thank you, Thulasizwe.
Thank you for that. That's Judith in Nice. Now, let me take a call from Michael. I believe, Michael, you also want to talk to me about some of the executive orders signed by the U.S. President, Donald Trump. Good morning.
Yes, good morning, Justice. How are you?
Very well. How are you?
No, I just want to put this into perspective. Look, South Africa is the biggest beneficiary of this HIV program called under USD or under PEP Fund.
Mm-hmm.
And under government allocation, there is a
Michael, your line is letting us down a bit there. Let's give it one more try and see.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Can you hear me now?
Let's try again, yeah?
I'm saying one of the biggest programs funded by USAID is HIV program, and that program is even giving a budget called grant fund. With grant fund, South Africa is able to purchase ART or Mshangus, is also able to even hire the staff under grant fund. If you go to development, you will find people that are hired under grant fund, and those people really paid under these funds that are sponsored by US.
Right.
So the impact is going to be dire if Trump is actually shutting down all the foreign aid funds that are being spent, meaning that we will risk a time whereby we could be running treatment.
All right.
We are running short of HIV treatment.
Michael, thank you for that. I think your line held just enough for us to be able to hear your contribution this morning. It was a bit shaky, but it held just enough. We got the point that you are making. Arnold in Joburg, good morning. You want to talk to me about the situation in the Congo?
Yes, Thulas. Thank you very much. Morning to you and to your listeners.
Good morning.
I just wanted to make 3 points. The first point is about what Mama Sophie was saying about the genocide, the old FDLR who are still fighting Kagame. I think that is a false narrative. It happened in 1994. Those people have been in the bush for a long time, and they can't be potent force to fight really Rwanda. Rwanda in the past 20 years has been so many times to Congo to look for those people. And the President Kabila, they had even a deal to go and look for the FDLR. At the end of the day, the FDLR and the Rwandans themselves, the Tutsi, they are busy looting the eastern, the mineral of the eastern Congo. So let's not have it as a narrative. The second thing, Goma has not fallen. All right? We have, if you want, I can send you videos or what. They are part of Goma's where the M23 is there, but Goma has not fallen.
Sure.
The third thing, Macron, she was asking why Macron should be there. The EU has given Rwanda money to support the what Rwanda is doing in Mozambique. So Rwanda, Macron has got some leverage on Kagame.
Okay.
So that's why he was there. And the last thing, the chief of staff of the army of Congo is a Tutsi. More than 20% of the officers in the Congolese army are Tutsis. That is a fact. The name is General Masunzu. You can check that.
All right,
so
gotcha.
Let's talk the truth, you know?
Yeah,
Thanks.
gotcha. Thank you. That's Arnold in Joburg there. Let's take a call from AB in Durban. Good morning to you, AB. You want to talk to me about Gaza and Israel and the ceasefire?
Yes, Thulas. William Els of the Institute of Security Studies repeated two of Israel's big propaganda lies, that Hamas was the stumbling block in the ceasefire deal, and secondly, that Israel had to bomb all the buildings in the northern Gaza in order to destroy the network of Hamas tunnels. That is the ridiculous justification repeated by the U.S. Secretary of State Blinken for the past year, that it's all about the tunnels. And so all schools, hospitals, churches, mosques, universities, and 95% of all buildings in the north have been flattened. The real reason, Thulas, is to push the Palestinians out of Gaza. And right at the start of Israel's attack on Gaza, the Egyptians were approached with the carrot that its massive loan with the World Bank will be cancelled if Egypt took in the Palestinians of Gaza. The building of camps in the Sinai in Egypt had already begun, but the President Sisi got cold feet and abandoned the project.
Right.
But whether he can withstand the pressure remains to be seen, because every year Egypt gets 1.7 billion from America. And now that the overgrown baby Donald Trump came into the White House, he addressed it very bluntly.
Right.
Let's remember that his Jewish son-in-law, Jared Kushner, said gleefully over a year ago that the Gaza coastline is beautiful and he would like to develop it with hotels and high-class apartments and so on. So Trump said on Saturday, the best thing is to clean out Gaza, a shocking statement, as if Palestinians are dirt. He wants the 2.2 million Palestinians of Gaza to be moved out of Egypt and Jordan. The word, of course, is very clear: ethnic cleansing. We thought genocide Joe was bad. This character is far worse.
All right, AB in Durban there. Let me take a call from David. David, good morning. You want to talk to me about the unemployment of black doctors this morning. What's that about?
Yes, thanks for taking my call. No, the unemployment of black doctors, because that's what it is. If you come in Durban, I'm always concerned about the high employment and the dominance of Indians in the private sector as a whole. But if you go to any private hospital here in Durban, you'll see the number of Indian doctors that are being employed. And to me, it can't be correct that the private sector in general, including the private hospitals, they only regard us as their consumers and also customers.
Do you believe, sorry David, do you believe to be disproportionate the number of doctors who are Indian South Africans in hospitals in that region? Given the population composition, do you believe it to be disproportionate?
Yes, given the demographics of the city, it's disproportionate, as well as the pharmacist as well. So my question, maybe I may be wrong, but I know there is some funding that comes from government that goes to the private hospitals. I think it should come with conditions, and one of them is to have a moratorium on the employment, more especially so that the employment balance. Because if you look at the high number of the Indian doctors in this hospital, it's not fair.
Yeah. David, because of time, I have to leave it there. But I do want to say to you that I would be wary of a language that talks about a moratorium on the employment of a certain group. It's the approach that you saw in that scandal that engulfed Discam a few years ago. That's not what employment equity means. It doesn't mean hold back certain people. It means affirm other groups as well. There's a subtle difference there. And unless it can be proven that there's discrimination which is unfair on the basis of race, then we're having a different conversation altogether. So I'd be very wary of language that talks about a moratorium on the employment of Indian doctors. Rather affirm the other groups, which is what the Constitution calls for, not a bastardization of, the affirmation of previously disadvantaged groups. Laher, good morning to you. You want to talk to me about universities and rejection letters?
Hi, Tunas. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you? Short and sharp for me, please.
Good.
Okay.
Yeah.
My son received an acceptance letter from UJ on Friday. We went through the letter, and it's like first come, first serve. Saturday, we did a payment registration. Because it was over the weekend, we thought it would take time to reflect on his profile. We gave it time. Last night, at about 9 to 10 in the evening, my son received a letter that he's been rejected. What do you call that?
Yeah. No, I'm sorry about that, Lahe. And I'm going to drop you, but your story is a story that I've heard. And it does seem that there is something that the universities will have to account for, and particularly the university that Lahe mentions, University of Johannesburg. I've definitely heard that story about that process. The demand for spaces is high. The spaces are fewer, but there have been quite a number of complaints like the one that was raised just now.
There will be joy and heartbreak at the Groenkloof Tennis Stadium in Pretoria. South Africa takes on Nigeria. The South is up against the West. This is the Davis Cup World Group 2 tie, the World Cup of tennis. Witness the spectacular tennis battle between South Africa and Nigeria on Saturday 1 February at 11 a.m. and Sunday 2 February at 10:30 a.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. You can also catch the Sunday action on SABC 3. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Kickstart your new year with low-cost insurance for your older car with Outsurance Essential. With Outsurance Essential, you get up to 1 million rand liability cover. So if you cause an accident, the other car could be covered for up to 1 million rand. Add motor warranty, which covers you for mechanical or electrical breakdowns. Get saving with Outsurance Essential for unfinanced cars older than 5 years and valued at less than 130,000 rand. SMS car to 43187. That's car to 43187. Licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and information online.
SAFM. Prime time all day long.
Right, let's bring you this story now. Eskom's cost of generating electricity has more than doubled over the past decade, driving up electricity prices significantly for South Africans. This has been revealed by the Electricity and Energy Minister, Thulasizwe Simelane, last week. According to Simelane, the surge in costs is linked to infrastructure investments, maintenance of aging plants, fuel costs and operational expenses. Let's bring into the conversation Professor Samson Mampweri, who is the head of the Energy Secretariat at the South African National Energy Development Institute, SANEDI, and also an energy expert. Good morning to you, and thank you for your time. Give us a sense of the escalating costs. I did not know that you could count it down to the cost of producing electricity per household that Eskom bears. Give us a sense of how these have escalated over the years.
Yeah, good morning to us and the listeners. So the cost has escalated over the years, and mainly because the South African economy was fired by low-cost electricity for quite a long time. And as Eskom tries to move towards what we call the cost-reflective tariffs, they then increase the tariffs, and over the years we've seen close to 700% increase of the electricity prices up to now. And we still expect that these increases will still continue, as we know that to date Eskom has requested an increase of about 36% for the current financial year, which is yet to be finalized, and also the following year it will be about 11%, and then year after it will be about 9%. So this increase is linked, like what you're saying, to the actual cost of electricity generation. So during the time when we had load shedding, and Eskom was using diesel, for instance, a lot of diesel for peaking power. That cost also goes down to the cost of generation of electricity, which we can then link down to the households and businesses. So that's basically what happens.
Is there a sense in the industry that the increase in the cost of generation has coincided with a decline in sales, in the sense that, more and more people are moving to self-generation, alternative sources, solar panels? And if that is the case, is that the reason why there are murmurs within Eskom and other utilities like City Power and others about the possibility of some kind of regulation of that space?
Yes, that is partly the reason, because as more and more people get out of the Eskom and municipal supply systems, the Eskom system still has to produce as much electricity, basically they produce less electricity but at the same kind of cost, and then that means that their cost of generation is higher than what the revenue that they collect from the people who are getting off the grid, and that is mainly because most of the people who are getting off the grid or who are partially getting out of the grid using alternative sources of energy are the people who can afford to pay for this electricity, and then they leave behind people who they're supposed to basically subsidize in terms of the electricity prices. So all those kind of things work against the utilities when it comes to the increase in electricity tariffs and the cost of generation as well.
All right. As always, thank you for your time and your insights this morning. That is Professor Samson Mampweri, who is the head of the Energy Secretariat, and that is at the South African National Energy Development Institute, SANEDI, and he is also an energy expert. Let's check in now with Ann Musa with the latest news headlines.
Good morning. Thanks to us. In the headlines, Patco Bus Company says the number of its buses that have been torched in Mpumalanga has risen to 50. This happened across the province overnight. The trial of alleged underworld boss Nafiz Modak and former rugby player turned debt collector Zayn Killian will continue in the High Court in Cape Town this morning after their bid to have charges against them withdrawn failed yesterday. And President Cyril Ramaphosa and his Rwandan counterpart Paul Kagame have spoken telephonically about the security situation in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. I'll have details on these and other stories at 9.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
If you're off to work in Sandton or Rosebank areas, there's lots of traffic. William Mandela down to Sandton Drive, very heavy. Behind that, Republic Road, badly backed up out of Randburg, onto William Mandela into the Parkmore side. William Mandela from Hyde Park going up to Sandton Drive, quite heavy as well. Jan Smuts from Forest Town up past the zoo into Rosebank's heavy. Really bad traffic out of Linden and Victory Park on that sort of 6th, 7th Road option, across into Rosebank and just south of that Chester Road under pressure. And then heading into Sandton, South Road through Morningside to Ravonia is all queued up. Grayston Drive coming off the highway through Catherine down towards Daisy and Linden. Some fairly heavy traffic there as well. Over in Durban, the N2 northbound stays under pressure, passing a crash before Kwamashu and a breakdown before Gateway. So if you're on your way to the airport, give yourself plenty of time to get through. A breakdown at Pavilion on the N3 outbound, slowing traffic from Spaghetti and pushing a queue back up the N2 south from Umgeni Road territory. Cape Town this morning, all very busy. The N7 leading Goodwood up to Bosmansdam Road, still very, very slow on that run through. Just a reminder, Baden-Powell closed, leaving Muizenberg towards Strandfontein due to sand, and a full closure at Monwabisi at the bottom of Khayelitsha. And stay off the N2 route through Dutwa in the Eastern Cape. Some pretty aggressive protesting with some looting of stores, burning tyres, multiple locations, multiple fires burning all through the Dutwa area. You don't want to end up in that mess. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Hey Zai, good morning to you once again. So we're reflecting on the Africa Cup of Nations draw for 2025, and in the group, Bafana will have Egypt, Zimbabwe and Angola, and there's a promise that will, for the love of the game, the viewers will be able to see it all on SABC.
Absolutely, Tulas. Bafana better bring the goals because no one's going to watch 0-0. Yeah, we've got Egypt, but you know what? We've got to tame them, and SABC will be rolling out the red carpet. This is for AFCON 2025. Group B is where Bafana is at. There against Egypt, Zimbabwe, Angola. We've also got the assistant coach for Bafana, Helman Mkalele, calling it a manageable group with familiar faces in the field. Meanwhile, SABC Group CEO Nomsa Chibedi attending the draw in Rabat. She has set her sights on delivering a world-class viewing experience for South Africans. Chibedi saying it's not just about the games, but about reclaiming the nation's glory through top-tier coverage. The tournament kicks off in Morocco this December.
So I must be honest with you, my first reaction was, let's not draw Morocco. I think we're in a very solid group. You know, it's very competitive. We've got Egypt, we've met Zimbabwe before, so I think it's going to be exciting. From an SABC perspective, I think we're looking at this and we're thinking like those teams we are going to be building to December and ensuring that we bring a solid broadcast to South Africa, but also to really have that competitive advantage from an African perspective, because we know that South Africa is a diverse country with diverse audiences, so we're not just catering to people who will want Bafana to win, which is probably the majority of South Africans, but we really will be bringing African football at its best, at its glory. And we look forward to this. We look forward to Bafana really coming and representing South Africa. And we believe that we are going to do a solid job. We should go through on the first group stages. And yeah, we have to go in strong. And it's an exciting thing. It was a stressful moment when we were waiting for the draw. But the die is cast. And it's time for us to prepare, and it's time for us to reclaim our glory.
That's SABC Group CEO Nomsa Chibedi on the morning brief. Elsewhere, Kyle Walker was presented at a press conference in Italy after sealing his loan move to AC Milan from Manchester City. Walker has been a mainstay in Man City's defence since 2017, with his speed and recovery abilities key to the way Pep Guardiola sets up the team, but his form dramatically dipped amid off-field issues recently where he lost his starting spot. Cricket news, one of South Africa's all-time great cricketers, AB de Villiers, is set for a comeback after nearly 4 years on the sidelines. De Villiers has announced his comeback to the game and will lead the Game Changers, South Africa champions, in the second edition of the World Championship of Legends. Mr. 360, as de Villiers is affectionately known, retired from international cricket in 2018. At the time, he said physical demands of playing at the highest level and a desire to spend more time with his family were some of the reasons that influenced his decision. And finally, the Paarl Royals extended their lead at the top of the SA20 table with a thrilling 6-wicket win over the Durban Super Giants last night. Despite Joe Root falling for a golden duck, his first ball dismissal coming after a successful review by Pranel Subrayan, the Royals chased down 144 with just one ball to spare. Ruben Harmon's 59 and Luandre Pretorius, his 43, anchored the innings, with Pretorius overtaking Ruet as the tournament's leading run scorer. The Super Giants are led by Marcus Stoinis' unbeaten 55. They are now officially out of the playoffs, leaving the Royals 7 points clear at the top. Let's hear from Joe Ruet.
Thoroughly enjoyed every minute of being here, both on and off the field. We've got a great group of lads who have welcomed me in brilliantly, made me feel a massive part of everything we've done both on and off the field. And of course I'll miss, the latter stages of the tournament. But it's never hard to go back and play international cricket for your country. So one of the best privileges you'll ever have, and you've only got so long, before it's someone else's opportunity in turn to have that honour.
And that's a wrap of the morning brief sport. John Gericke will be stepping up to the crease around 12:30 for SAFM. I'm Zai Khan.
The Business Update on SAFM.
Let's say good morning once again to Odwa Magwenchu, who is Portfolio Manager at Momentum Securities. So, Odwa, in this hour, earlier on in the week, you were telling me just what a busy week we are looking at in terms of, new print that's coming out and what we are expecting. Tell me what we expect today in economic events for the day.
Okay, so today, firstly, is we must keep in mind it's the Chinese holidays, the New Year, for the rest of the week. So we're not going to be having any activity that side. As we go more to the United States, we're anticipating core durable good orders to come in. They've been quietly plateauing, so we don't expect much from that. But quite importantly, we do have the house price index expected at 4 o'clock for the United States. That is going to go along with the inflation story of what's happening. And if it's too much on the upside, it could lead to pressures down the line.
Any notable results to report that we can expect today?
Yes, so today it's going to be Louis Vuitton and SAP already released. Louis Vuitton is on the luxury brands side of things. We could see a much higher results coming out of that business because like Richmond, like Burberry, they have been performing quite well. What to also take note of is defense stocks or defense and aerospace stocks are releasing today, the likes of Boeing, Lockheed Martin, and Raytheon. And the expectation is that the Boeing and Lockheed Martin could anticipatedly miss this print today. However, the business, we could see a turnaround, or they might give us more insight in what the Trump presidency has to offer them.
Yeah.
On the local front, I think what's interesting, we've already had two trade updates, one from Woolworths and the other one from ShopRite. And for Woolworths, we saw some good numbers on the food business. However, the business is still struggling when it comes to the clothing brand. And that in total dropped the company's performance. And then...
Yeah, go ahead.
And then lastly, as I said, ShopRite also released an operating update, and they are looking quite good on that front, except from some currency pressures from Ghana.
Now, I'll be looking forward to hearing a bit more about the what Boeing will be reporting, given all the troubles that they've had over the last few months. Finally, Odwa, give us a preview and a sense of what to expect in the markets here at home and elsewhere in the world.
Okay, starting off in the local markets, we are anticipating to open a bit positive as the S&P South African top 40's futures are up 0.23%. Internationally, in the United States, we are anticipating a much more cooler opening, not as bad as yesterday. The Dow Jones is down by 0.3%, S&P 500 down by 0.1%, and the NASDAQ up by 0.08%. And then if we go to everything else in the local markets, we did have the resources down as well, so we're anticipating that to occur again today. And then we also had the industrial sector up by 1.08%, and the financials were also down on yesterday at 0.3%. So that's what we're anticipating.
All right, thank you for that. That's Odwa Makwenchu, Portfolio Manager at Momentum Securities, who's been watching all things economy, business, and the markets for you over the last 3 hours here on the Morning Brief.
Assurance, they understand my business. They are so good in terms of communication, which gives me confidence. It's a good decision that I've made to move to Assurance. I'm a winner. I want to be with the winners.
Switch to Business Outsurance today and you could get a massive 20% discount on your business insurance premium. SMS quote to 43328. That's quote to 43328 to switch and save today. Licensed insurer and FSP. TCs and information online.
Fly Sapphire is proud to share that we've been named the most on-time airline in Africa and the Middle East for a second year in a row. This award by Cirium, the world's leader in aviation analytics, is proof of how important your time is to us and how we genuinely care about getting you to your destinations and loved ones on time, every time. Because each second saved is a moment gained, and we strive to keep making every moment count. Fly Sapphire, for the love of flying.
Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief. Weekdays
Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
17 minutes to 9. Let me bring you this story now. A study by the Benchmarks Foundation has found that legitimate mining companies purchase minerals mined by illegal miners, infamously known as the Zamazamas. The report indicates that illegal miners often sell their gold to scrap metal dealers, security companies, and even police officers. This means that illegally sourced minerals are injected back into the formal economy. Let's speak now to David van Wyk, who is a lead researcher at the Benchmarks Foundation. Good morning to you, and thank you for your time this morning. It's always been a curiosity for many of us. Where do the illegal miners sell their gold once it's been mined? Your work goes to some extent to answering that question. What did you find?
Well, when we speak to illegal miners, and we've spoken to them all along Main Reef Road, the Main Reef Road goes all the way through to Klerksdorp, they tell us that very often when a mine closes and it shuts down, the very people who retrench workers at that mine come back and they come and purchase the gold and the other minerals that people extract, because some of these mines also have diamonds in them. The Stilfontein was the Stilfontein Gold and Diamond Mining Company in the 1940s. And many of the Zamazamas were found to have diamonds by the police when they came up. They sell them back to the former owners. We also find along Main Reef Road, if you go just up into Brixton and these places, you find scrap metal dealers there. You see the big sign saying, "We buy gold." When we did work in Colombia, we found the same thing there as well, with the same signs, "We buy gold." So I don't believe the story that these guys who are underground have the capacity to get gold to Dubai. The Dubai story is a detraction. I think that most of the gold goes into the formal system in the South African context, and it gets processed here, and it goes into the pockets of businessmen here, right in South Africa.
So from the work you've done, David, does it appear that this is the work of individuals who happen to have worked for the previous owners of the mine before it closed, or can we talk about something more systematic, something that talks to mandate from high-ups?
In Blackpool, for example, they caught managers on a farm next to the mine. I think it was around 2017, 2018, who were processing gold right there from their own mine. And when we go back to the 1960s, this was fairly common in areas like Welkom and so on as well, where people were stealing the gold from their own mine and so on, and smuggling it into an informal system. It is a system that goes very high up. It goes very high up in the security structures of the country as well. It goes very high up in the business structures of the country as well. It's organized. It is organized. Much as we want to say the guys who are underground have a very complex division of labor when you've got 2,000 or 3,000 people underground, we have a very complex division of labor up on the surface as well, involving all the people that you've mentioned. Obviously, when you are moving around gold and so on, you need a lot of security. Security companies become involved. When you need to recruit labor, labor brokers become involved. People tell us that people with bakkies come around to the areas where there are high levels of unemployment and ask people, "Do you want a job?" And if you say yes, they pick you up and you find yourself in a mine. So that is what we need to investigate.
So what does what you found tell us about the ease with which gold can move from the illegal, illicit economy to the legitimate economy? Does it point to a weakness in regulation? Is it time to have conversations about, something akin to the Kimberley process, for example, as far as diamonds are concerned?
I think that we need to have a blood gold process. Similar to the Kimberley process. We need to be able to tell what is the source of the gold, where did it come from? Did it come from super exploited labor in abandoned mines, or did it come from the formal mining system? And then we've got to create a central buying agency so that all gold comes through a central buying agency. That's the only way that you can establish a Kimberley-type gold mining process, is through a central buying agency. And we need to strengthen the inspectorate in the Department of Mineral Resources, but people tell us that the inspectors are easily bribed as well.
Wow. Then there's another aspect that you uncovered, David, that talks to illegal mining syndicates somehow being involved in the funding of political campaigns. Is that confined to the countries like Lesotho, or do we see that also manifesting here?
No, it's manifesting here. People in Machibeng tell us that there are councillors who in the last local government election had their campaigns financed by syndicates. Now that is another aspect that we need to look at. We need to look at the funding for political campaigns and parties. We need to actually clean that up properly and make sure that there is no illicit funding coming in. We've got a local government election coming up. We've got political parties that are cash strapped in this local government elections coming up next year. And it's at that level that this occurs, So when we have big national elections, everyone is looking at, okay, who's funding the political parties? There's legislation that says they must declare who is funding them and so on. But at the local government level, I don't think we've got the inspectorate or the capacity to ensure that people are not taking money from these guys.
So in terms of recommendations, what do you recommend? Is it possible to further regulate the value chain of gold mining without risking, falling on the foul side of those that say, don't increase regulation, you make it difficult for business and for investments to flow?
Well, I think that we need to do a proper audit of all abandoned mines, but we must also do an audit of mines about to be abandoned. We hear of big mining companies selling operations to each other so that they can avoid the environmental responsibility. Like, for example, Anglo American sold a mining operation in the Marikana area for $1 American to Sibanye. I just heard of another case yesterday. Now that means that the new owner that takes over, he bought that mine without the responsibilities of rehabilitating and closing it properly. It means that mine is eventually going to be abandoned and fall foul of Zamazamas and so on, and of the whole illegal mining operation. It's not just gold that is involved, chrome, platinum, and everything else is also involved. So we have to do the audit, but we also have to create the space for small people to participate in mining and to do so in an orderly fashion. So we need to organize people into small business units. Yeah. We need to assign inspectors, engineers, geologists, and others to those small units. We need to create a funding mechanism for that so that we have better control over what's going on. Yeah. The old monopoly mining is finished in South Africa. People don't want to accept that large-scale industrial mining is finished. Yeah. And we have to have an orderly transition to smaller-scale mining.
All right, David, thank you for your time. My goodness, how many times have we heard that being said about artisanal, controlled and regulated artisanal mining being one of the pathways to transforming that industry? But will we ever get there? That's David van Wyk. He is lead researcher at the Benchmarks Foundation.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Still a lot of traffic on the M1. If you're leaving Pretoria heading down to Joburg, we haven't cleared through rush hour just yet. Old Joburg Road to New Road is the delay. A lot of traffic going into Sandton, the Mike 1 off the Buccleuch down through Marlborough Drive. Northbound coming up from Melrose into Sandton, quite busy. And lots of traffic heading into Sandton on the other side. William Mandela, Republic Road onto Sandton Drive, very heavy. Also Jan Smuts, really just all jammed up from Forest Town on your way through to Rosebank. That's quite heavy today. And Bayers Nordia from Rampark Ridge through the highway down to Fairland, still struggling along with multiple traffic light outages through there. Durban, the N2 North, a breakdown at Mhlanga. It's been with us all morning. The northbound traffic backs from just after Queen Nandi Drive. Bit of pressure going south between Umgena Road and Spaghetti Junction as well. Dutwa, some pretty aggressive protesting and some looting of stores happening in the central Dutwa area along the N2 corridor, Eastern Cape. Probably a good idea just to avoid that. We are hearing that some trucks are starting to get through, so there may be some reopening, but I would give that a wide berth for a little while. It was quite aggressive down there, fires burning at multiple locations. Up the road in East London, or down the road in East London, that heavy rain has caused some localised flooding, particularly on the off-ramp. The off-ramp at Hemingways from the N2 is under quite deep water, and you'll see that across the East London area. Cape Town still really busy. Midweek Tuesday, traffic on the N1 backing up from Plattercliff Hill all the way through to the elevated freeway. The N2 inbound from just after the airport stays busy, and there's still a lot of traffic to clear up the M3, sitting from Kinstad Rancher, all the way through to UCT. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Outsurance has another random fact for you. In 1997, a loaf of bread cost only 2 rand. Now, it's about 24 rand. Prices just keep going up. But you can count on Outsurance's commitment to saving you big bucks on your car insurance. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Cyril saves 358 Rand a month on his 2023 GWM P-Series 4x4.
It was mind-blowing. It was quick and easy. That saving is actually saving my paycheck. Leave all the insurances and come to Outsurance because they will save.
Another satisfied Outsurance customer. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. And when it comes to service, Outsurance is on the ball. Valid claims are settled and paid out quickly with no hassle. SMS out to 30754. With Outsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
There will be joy and heartbreak at the Groenkloof Tennis Stadium in Pretoria. South Africa takes on Nigeria. The South is up against the West. This is the Davis Cup World Group 2 tie, the World Cup of tennis. Witness the spectacular tennis battle between South Africa and Nigeria on Saturday 1 February at 11 a.m. and Sunday 2 February at 10:30 a.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. You can also catch the Sunday action on SABC 3. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
I feel great. I feel nice.
Kasha, what's the score? We're quelling on the highest, the summer level. What are we? Uzalo. What's the qua? No maswazi cause being a mama. Pefeni wants to kreta and get a kaya. It's the core on SABC Plus. Don't miss Uzalo at 8:30 weekdays only on SABC 1. Zanzi for sure.
Call Thulasizwe now. 086 000 2032.
Let me take a call from Warren in Stutterheim. Good morning to you, Warren. Mining on your mind this morning.
The gentleman David stole some of my thunder. However, what I'd like some clarification on a lot of people. How are these illegal miners getting the ore? Gold isn't there for them to... They have to break it down and then smelt it. So they have to crush it and smelt it. How are they doing this? Can you find out? Because it'll be very interesting. I was on yesterday's Kathy's program with Lebo.
Yeah.
And it was very, very interesting. But nobody's coming up and saying, this is exactly what is happening.
Yeah.
This is the process. They go from A to B to C to D. And then, where these syndicates that Gwede Matashi was talking about, where do they fit in, supposed to fit in?
Gotcha.
That would be very interesting.
Thank you, Warren.
As something. Thank you.
Thank you, Warren.
Okay.
There are a few documentaries that I've seen that explain that whole process and the equipment. Some of it makeshift, some of it actually quite professional that those illegal miners do use. But a great question and a great challenge there being posed around the value chain and how it all works. Let's talk a bit about the social grants. Let me hear from you about what we've been asking about the social relief of distress grant.
Good morning. Thanks for a great show. So I was homeless for a while and stayed in the streets. And I think the grant system will work in a perfect society. But I met too many people on the streets who chose to remain sick so they could get that grant or lie to the government so they could get money. And I think our society, unfortunately, the whole is just too corrupt. To sustain it. If we're going to give out a basic income grant, the levels of unemployment are going to go even higher because people are just not going to want to work because it's easy to get free money. Anyway, thanks for a great show.
Sure, that's an interesting take, but I wonder the extent to which you would be willing to subject yourself to the indignity of not finding work simply for, a grant that is really merely meant to cover just the basics. It's always been an interesting debate, that, hasn't it?
Good morning, Thulas and SAFM listeners. Thulas, for me, the SRD grants, if they were done the right way in the beginning, they could have accommodated even those people that were left out from the start. Because Thulas, for me, if they were asking people to appeal, if they have disqualified them, if they were appealing, then they will have known that those people wouldn't just appeal for the sake of appealing. It's because they knew the money they were talking, say they have got a source of income. They don't have that full time. Thanks. It's Lucy in Gauteng.
Thank you, Lucia. It does seem from the judgment when I was reading it that the court is not disagreeing with the need to have controls as to who qualifies, but it just says that the methods that were utilized by government were just not the right ones. They just went and made sure that the administrative barriers were such that people were not able, even people who do qualify for the SRD grant.
Hey, Thulas, good morning. Islamic Soweto. Thulas, for us to say, we must withdraw the army, we must do this, actually the blame must go to United Nations. Because personally, it's not supposed to be our cost. It's supposed to be the cost of United Nations to provide the machinery, not us. So now we have to ask the United Nations, how equipped were they armed? And how many of the United Nations soldiers were there? So to defend themselves and to defend the people of DRC. So these are the questions must go to the United Nations to answer, because each and every country contributed the army, but not the machinery or resources to fight.
Yeah. No, look, the way I understand it, and I could be wrong, I could be completely wrong, but the way I understand it, and when I was in the DRC, the sense I got, and that was many years ago, by the way, not recent, the sense I got was that you have troop contributing countries and the equipment also comes from those countries. So there was a lot of that machinery that was from South Africa. It gets branded with UN colors. But also complicating the situation now is that South Africa is participating not only in the UN mission, but there's also the SADC mission. So those are two different missions that are at play there, where you say, I contribute troops as well as the equipment to be used in the arena of battle. And that's how we come to the end of today's edition of the Morning Brief. Thank you for listening and thank you for your engagement. The Talking Point is up next here on SAFM after the news. And that's the news for this hour. Theft, accident and 1 million rand liability cover, all covered by Outsurance Essential. Get a quote today. SMS CAR to 43187.
In our top stories, 50 Patco buses torched in Mpumalanga and trial of village underworld boss set to continue. Good morning. Patco Bus Company says the number of its buses that have been torched in Mpumalanga has risen to 50. This happened across the province overnight. An unknown group of people ambushed security personnel at the Moloto depot. The group then set buses on fire. 2 Patco workers were wounded. Other depots also reported that their buses were torched. The Indigenous First Nation Advocacy South Africa has strongly condemned the newly signed Land Expropriation Act. It has described the act as a devastating blow to the land restitution rights of indigenous San and Khoi people. The advocacy group believes the act prioritizes cheap reconciliation over justice, marginalizing already vulnerable communities. Philip Williams is the advocacy group's executive director.
You cannot talk about expropriation without compensation, without fixing the structural issues within the constitution of this country. Section 25, subsection 7 of the constitution bars or keeps the indigenous San and community outside of claiming land, because it explicitly says that you cannot claim land which you have lost before 1930.